Part 107. First Marriage Then Love, Mr. Mayor Please Be Kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1092. 2 chapters together. Hui, looking at Zhao Qiwi who came in through the door, Lu Lianbao looked surprised, but what he said didn't mean what he said. Didn't I tell you to come back when you have a rest? After greeting Liu's father and Liu's mother, Zhao Qiwi smiled at Lu Lianbao and said, "The school is not far from here. It's very convenient for me to ride here. How do you feel today?" "It's pretty good." Lu Lianbao frowned and pointed at the bandage hanging his leg. "I would feel better if I didn't have to hang it like this, Hold on for a few more days." In front of the elders, Zhao Qiwi was embarrassed to say 2 intimate words, so she comforted him and looked at Father Lu and Mother Lu. "By the way, have Uncle and Aunt eaten?" "We ate, and Xiaobao also ate," Mother Lu said as she picked up the lunch box. "Why, talk to Xiaobao first, and I'll go get you some food." She then poked Lu. "Father, don't just sit around after eating. Go out and digest the food." "I don't." Before the words left his mouth, Liu's father realized what his wife meant and immediately changed his words. "Don't say it, I'm really a little nervous. I need to go out for a walk." "Uncle, Aunt." Zhao Qiwi quickly stood up and stopped the 2 of them. "I'm not hungry, you don't have to work. I came here today and brought someone with me. I will explain the details to you later. Now I want him to come in and sit for a while." "Okay. Okay. Mother Lu responded repeatedly, put down the bowl and walked towards the door. "Why don't you let her in? Look at you kids, we are a family, so you don't need to be so polite." When she opened the door and saw Zhang Wenyuan standing at the door, she was obviously stunned, then put on a smile and said, "Comrade, come in and sit down." Zhao Qiwi looked at Lu Lianbao and introduced, "He is Zhang Wenyuan, as I told you before." Then he turned to Zhang Wenyuan, "You should have heard all our conversations outside just now, and you should also know the relationship between us. How is it? Now, do you have anything else to say?" With a light smile on his face, Zhang Wenyuan first greeted Liu's father and mother, and then looked at Lu Lianbao. "Hello, I am Zhang Wenyuan. I am currently a sophomore at Beijing University. I am a classmate with Qi Hui's brother." "I know." Lu Lianbao looked at him indifferently and pointed to the stool beside the bed. "Sit down. The conditions here are simple and I can't entertain you well." "I'm really sorry." Father Lu and Mother Lu stood there blankly, looking uncomfortable. No matter how honest they were, they could still see what was happening in front of them. They were extremely satisfied with their prospective daughter-in-law, but now that a college student appeared who was better looking than their son, they began to feel anxious, and even looked at their son with a bit more worry. After hesitating for a moment, Mother Lu looked at Zhao Qiwi. "Why, we won't get involved in the affairs of you young people. Your uncle and I will go get you some food." After saying that, without waiting for Zhao Qiwi to answer, she raised her eyebrows. Stepping out, Father Lu quickly followed. Zhao Qiwi did not stop them. She had been paying attention to the expressions of the old couple just now and knew what they were worried about. Now was not the time to explain in detail. It was indeed a bit embarrassing to leave them here, so it was better to let them avoid it. But the old couple walked out of the door of the ward, looked at each other, and walked to the cafeteria thoughtfully. Halfway there, Liu's father sighed and began to complain about his wife. "Look at you, if you didn't treat Hui so well when you first came here, just be warm in your attitude, Hui will definitely not be dissatisfied with our son. Didn't I tell you that I wasn't enthusiastic? I was too nervous and didn't know what to say. I explained it to my child at the time and she was understanding. How come this has changed?" "Don't talk nonsense. How can you say that things have changed now?" Liu's father glared at his wife and said, "I think Hui is good to our son. I guess that boy has taken a fancy to Huiwai, and he always refuses to let go. Huiwai must have brought him here because she had no choice but to make him give up. But, after hesitating, Mother Lu said, in terms of appearance, our son is not as good as others, in terms of ability, our son is not as good as others, in terms of knowledge, our son is not as good as others, even in terms of age, our son doesn't have an advantage. You think these conditions are put here, can Huiwai really choose our son? I said, how can you look down on your son so much? Father Lu frowned dissatisfied. Our son was seriously injured while defending our family and country. What about him? Without our son, he would have such a comfortable life. Yes, can I go to college? Don't say these things in front of our son. He is really worried about you. Fortunately, you are his mother. Otherwise, if he finds out, he will never be able to talk to you again in this life. Also, Huiwai is a sensible child. You are not allowed to make random guesses and wrongly accuse her. If your confusion really makes your daughter-in-law angry, your son will definitely not be able to spare you. I'm just talking to you. Mother Lu couldn't help but sigh. It's not that I'm being discouraged, it's that the child is a good kid at first glance, so I can't help but think about it. You're wrong, think about what Huiwai said when he came in. Father Liu's expression became more relaxed as he spoke. I followed you out, just because I didn't want to make them feel uncomfortable there. In fact, I trust our daughter-in-law. Just watch, as soon as our son's leg heals, my daughter-in-law will get married right away. Who knows, by this time next year, we will be able to have grandchildren. That's great. Mrs. Lu also became happy after her husband said it, and rolled up her sleeves unconsciously. I will come to the city to take care of their children, and I will do some odd jobs to help the young couple with subsidies. Come on, you can earn work points at home honestly, and when the new year comes, our whole family will also have a happy reunion, so that those who say sarcastic words will dodge their tongues. You old woman, you think long term. Liu's father looked at his wife funny. You don't want your daughter-in-law to run away with someone now. I didn't originally think that my daughter-in-law would follow someone else, but I just didn't feel at ease. Think about it, no one our son has ever found is better than Huiwai, but in the end, aren't they all bad? Such a good girl, she is a college student, her family is in good condition, her brother and sister are also good. You said that we could meet such a daughter-in-law, I never dreamed. Liu's father interrupted her. I told you a long time ago that our son is a promising person. There is no need to worry. You just don't listen and keep urging me. Now that I think about it, do you feel lucky that those few people in the past didn't do it? Success? Not to mention anything else, in terms of this character, none of them can compare with Huiwai. Old man, you're right about this. I'm not stubborn with you. Mother Lu let out a long sigh of relief. Then let's stop talking on the road and hurry up to get food for the child. No matter what the boy wants to say. What, our daughter-in-law's body is important. Yes, yes. Liu's father agreed and walked faster towards the cafeteria. Liu's mother spat at him. Look at you, you are not as good as your son at this point. You have not known how to love your wife at all. Just leave, he just slipped away by himself, not caring whether I could keep up. Look at our son. He is so considerate to Huiwai. He just can't walk if his legs are healed. Look at how our son takes care of his daughter-in-law. Learn more, or I will follow my son in the future. Come on, I don't care about you old thing anymore. You are quite old, are you mentally ill? Damn old man, you are insane. How can you say these crazy things without being crazy? How old are you, and you still compare yourself with your daughter-in-law? Liu's father curled his lips in contempt. If the people in the village knew what you were thinking, they would laugh at you to death. If you don't tell me, who will know? Mother Lu glared at her husband and snorted. Besides, I have suffered all my life with you. Isn't it wrong for me to ask you to be nicer to me at such an old age? Yes, yes, you are right in everything. I will listen to you, okay. Liu's father patted his wife's arm in a funny way, then took the lunch box from her hand. I'll take the lunch. You, is it possible to leave empty-handed? That's pretty much it? Father Liu. Why does he feel that his wife is being hypocritical after coming to the city to live for a few days? Well, when his son is almost healed, he has to take his wife back home as soon as possible, otherwise, what will become of his wife? When the old couple returned to the room with their lunch boxes, Zhang Wenyuan had already left. Zhao Qiwei was talking quietly to Lu Lianbao when he heard the door open and quickly stood up. Uncle, Aunt, are you back? I still want to trouble you to get me some food. It's really. She rubbed her hands in embarrassment. It's really inappropriate. Child, what's wrong with you? You're so tired after a day of classes. What's the point of us giving you a meal? Mother Lu opened the lunch box and greeted, come here and eat while it's hot. You kid, from now on you will be with me, don't be so polite. When we weren't here, you took care of Xiaobao. Now that we are here, if we can take care of Xiaobao, we can take care of you. This will be the case when you get married in the future. I won't show off to those mother-in-laws. Here's the spectrum. Thank you, Aunt, thank you, Uncle. Zhao Qiwei sat down to eat obediently. Originally, she planned to come over to see Lu Lianbao go home for dinner, but now that the old couple has brought food, it would be bad if she didn't eat. Knowing the worries of the old couple, Zhao Qiwei smiled at them. Uncle, Aunt, I know what you are worried about. Don't worry, that Zhang Wenyuan will not destroy my relationship with Lu Lianbao. Mother Lu quickly nodded and said, we know, we know. You can eat until you finish eating. Knowing that his parents must be extremely anxious, Lu Lianbao greeted them with a smile. Come and sit down, let Huiwei eat, and I'll talk to you in detail. Why? The old couple responded and quickly sat on the edge of the bed. The black line on Zhao Qiwei's head, she just said she was not in a hurry. That Zhang Wenyuan used to like Huiwei, but then they broke up. He went to college first, and after Huiwei passed the exam this year, he regretted it and wanted to continue to be with Huiwei, and then Huiwei kept refusing him, but he never gives up. Huiwei had no other choice, so she brought him over to let him see our family and make him give up. Anyway, everything that needs to be said has been explained clearly, and he will not pester Huiwei anymore in the future. Parents, you don't have to worry about this. Huiwei is a dedicated girl. Since she promised me, she will definitely not do this or that with others again. We're not worried, we're not worried. Mother Lu smiled sheepishly, repeating this sentence over and over again. Uncle, Aunt. Zhao Qiwei, who finished her meal quickly, moved a stool and sat over. Lu Lianbao saved my face and said that we broke up. In fact, he didn't want me anymore. Lu Lianbao may not have told you my details, but today is a great opportunity to take advantage of this opportunity. I will tell you in detail, so as not to hear any rumors in the future and cause you to misunderstand. I was engaged before and was also a soldier. Our two families were neighbors and we had grown up together. But then he had an accident and passed away. I was very sad at the time. It was also at that time that I decided to take the college entrance examination because I thought I could not become a soldier. Then, Zhang Wenyuan became my tutor. He was my brother's classmate and he used to visit our house often. I had a good impression of him. Yes, he took the initiative to ask me for tutoring, and I agreed. Later, my cousin saw that I had been emotionally unstable, so she told me what Zhao Yuanbao had done. Zhao Yuanbao was the person I was engaged to. He was gone, so I won't say anything wrong with him. Anyway, he did a lot nothing can be brought to the table. Gradually, my mood recovered. After getting along with Zhang Wenyuan for a long time, I developed feelings for him. However, after he was admitted to college, his family did not allow him to associate with me. He basically didn't even resist, and made it clear that he wanted to sever ties with me. I was quite disappointed at the time, but since we didn't get along for too long, naturally I wasn't too sad. Later, after he left, Wen Zhang took the initiative to find me and asked to review with me. My grades were not particularly good and I really needed help and guidance from others, so I agreed to him. But later, his family did not want us to interact because they felt that if I was good at studying essays and I was poor at studying, it must be because I passed the exam for essays and I failed. As a result, on the contrary, I passed the exam but failed for essays. At this time, his family began to agree to let him be with me, but my heart was hurt. How could I go back, and of course I couldn't reconcile with him. But in general, Wen is better than Zhang Wenyuan. He has been resisting with his family. However, I already knew at that time that I didn't have much feelings for him and I was willing to talk to him about a partner, but as I got older and was under pressure from public opinion, I just responded to the situation. However, before I came to college, in order to have the motivation to review the article, I promised to wait for him in college. Of course, I did not say the specific meaning of this waiting. This is also the first time. Zhao Qiwei looked at Lulian Bao. The reason why I have never agreed to you is because I feel that I have always been quite passive emotionally. Every time others say yes, I agree, and others cannot. I can only start from scratch myself. So, when you made it clear that you liked me, I didn't know what to do with you. But later, your behavior made it clear to me that you are different from them. No matter which one of them it is, they will not be as persistent as you. For no other reason than your persistence, I feel that I will definitely not regret being with you. This time, I was so annoyed by Zhang Wenyuan that I couldn't help it, and my cousin also reminded me that since I had decided to be with Lulian Bao, I had to make my attitude clear. Now that I have made everything clear, uncle, aunt, and Lulian Bao, please think carefully about whether you are willing to accept a person like me as a member of your family. You don't have to rush to answer me. I will come back tomorrow. No matter what your choice is, I will accept it. After saying so much in one breath, Zhao Qiwei bowed deeply to several people, turned around and walked out. These words have been held in her heart for a long time. In fact, from the moment Lulian Bao expressed his affection for her, she wanted to tell him about her past in detail. However, because of that rejection, she always talking nonsense. Today is the first time that she has explained her emotional past to someone in such detail. If they choose to give up, then it means that this relationship is not worth her expectations. Moreover, she will never keep silent in the future because of their giving up. She has decided that even if she fails with Lulian Bao, she will not hide these things from anyone in the future. Because, from Zhang Wenyuan, she saw the side she least wanted to see. All the persistence is about not letting go of the past. In fact, it is just covering up the darkest side of her heart. Just now, after all the talks were finished, she sent Zhang Wenyuan away. Zhang Wenyuan told the truth, saying that I didn't want to beg her shamelessly, but I had to do this because of my family's instructions. The reason is very simple. The Zhao family is different now. Zhang Wenyuan's parents hope that he can seize the opportunity and have a good job and a good future in the future. But now, Zhang Wenyuan will speak out because he wants to save some face. Yes, in his opinion, it was to save face. It wasn't because he liked her that he didn't give up, it was because of some of her external conditions that he was forced to do so by his family. The implication is that you, Zhao Qiwei, are nothing more than that. Don't think that I like you so much because I pursue you so much. Moreover, Zhang Wenyuan also said, can you figure out whether Lulian Bao really likes you? He is now your brother-in-law's subordinate and your brother's comrade in arms. He knows your family's background so well, so it is possible that he is like this to you. In other words, you are just stupid enough to believe him. As for his family members, as long as they know after all this, will they still not pay attention to you? It sounds hard to say, but there is some truth to it. To be honest, for a moment, she even had doubts, but soon she felt that she was a villain. Judging from Lu Lianbao's previous actions, he definitely should not be that kind of person. However, no matter whether he was that kind of person or not, she wanted to test it out and tell the whole story, just to save the day. Regarding her relationship with Zhang Wenyuan, Wen Zhang, and even Zhao Yuanbao, she spoke vaguely, leaving people with limited guesses. Gui, generally speaking, will not be able to accept it. Hui. As soon as Zhao Qiui's hand closed the door handle, Lu Yuanbao's urgent call came. After a slight pause, Zhao Qiui did not look back. I don't need to think about it. After a pause, Lu Yuanbao emphasized his tone again, I don't need to think about it at all. From the moment I saw your eyes, I knew what kind of person you were. In fact, I know that you were emotionally hurt in the past, and I do mind it, but what I mind is not that you have had emotional experiences, but that they don't know how to cherish you. I have been looking forward to you giving me the opportunity to take care of you. Now, this opportunity has finally come. It's too late for me to be happy, so how could I back down? Hui. Mother Lu quickly stepped forward and took Zhao Qiui's hand. Your uncle and I don't talk. It's not because we have any ideas, but because we haven't recovered from what you said. Of these, Xiao Bao has indeed never told us that you are such an honest kid. How can your uncle and I not like you? Your uncle and I are both honest people with stupid mouths. You understand what we mean, right kid? Hui, uncle, you don't have to worry. Just when we went out, your aunt was worried that you and Xiao Bao would break up, but I wasn't worried at all. I have always believed in you. I hid out because I wanted you young people to speak freely. My child, you must not misinterpret my uncle's thoughts. Hui, you should know that I have no chance to persuade my parents. What they said is their truest idea. If you want me to get better soon, please stop torturing me, okay? Zhao Qiui turned around slowly, with tears on her face and a bright smile. Lu Lianbao, if you really don't mind, tell me to marry me immediately. Do you dare? After a moment of surprise, Lu Lianbao's eyebrows almost flew up when he understood what Zhao Qiui meant. Father, mother, you heard it, right? Your daughter-in-law proposed to me. Father, mother, you go find Li, the clerk is here. I want to report the marriage. Okay. Mother Lu turned around and walked out, but was caught by Father Lu. Wait a minute. Then she looked at Zhao Qiui seriously. Hui, we are not in a hurry about the marriage. We will wait for Xiao Bao. Let's wait until the injury heals, okay? Uncle, I understand what you mean. Zhao Qiui looked at Father Lu seriously. No matter whether Lu Lianbao's leg can recover or not, I will marry him. You kid. Rubbing his hands, Father Lu didn't know what to say. At this moment, Lu Lianbao also calmed down and patted the seat next to him. Hui, come and sit. You also want to persuade me to postpone the wedding? Zhao Qiui looked at him with a half smile. The doctor said that as long as you cooperate well, there will definitely be no problem with your legs. With the way you are now, I suspect that you are delaying deliberately because you don't want to marry me. Why, do you really regret it? Did everything you just said lie to me? R1152. First marriage then love. Mr. Mayor, please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1093. Su Yicheng opened the door a little tiredly and came in. He put the briefcase in his hand directly on the sofa in the living room and sat down on the sofa. Lying back on the sofa, he seemed to have had a little too much to drink tonight. The city's official copy of the Science and Technology City case has come out, and the person in charge of the case will be elected through voting in the next few days. In fact, in the officialdom, there is indeed an internal decision. Mr. John called him recently and asked him to be prepared to hand over the work at any time, and also asked him to prepare a speech when the appointment was made. Obviously this news leaked out very quickly. He had obviously had a lot more social activities in the past 2 days. Some people wanted to push it off, but couldn't. I drank a lot of wine in the evening. Although I was not drunk, my head was very dizzy. Just after I came back, Secretary Zhang found a taxi, and the car was left at the Municipal Party Committee and Government. The door to the study room was opened, and An Ran yawned and came out with a cup to pour water. She had been very busy these 2 days, and had been working on the design drawings of the mobile manor. This weekend, after sitting in the study room for a day, she finally finished the work. The sample picture is roughly drawn. In addition to busy with the design drawings these 2 days, she has also been worried about Lin Li. Fortunately, when she went to the hospital to see her in the morning, she seemed to be much better. Although there was not much smile on her face, she was not as empty as before. Lin's mother quietly told her that Lin Li had been much better in the past 2 days. Although her appetite was still bad, she would work hard to make herself eat more. She knew that she was trying hard not to worry herself and Father Lin. Although this period of time will be difficult now, she believes that Lin Li will get better and return to the Lin Li who loves to laugh and has no worries. In fact, Ayn Rand could see that Lin Li had not completely let go. Sometimes, she would accidentally see her hand subconsciously touching her belly, thinking she was looking for something, and then tears would flow down her face as she touched it. I was afraid that they would see me, so I secretly wiped the tears from my face with my hands. Ayn Rand knew that she had done a good job in trying so hard. After all, letting go of the relationship for so many years did not mean that she could not think about anything for a while. She needed time, and they all needed time. He walked towards the kitchen with misty eyes, and when he passed the living room, he realized that Su Yicheng had returned. Su Yicheng, he walked towards the living room with the cup, put the cup on the low table, and watched him leaning on the cigarette butt with his eyes closed, his body smelling of alcohol. Seeing that he didn't answer, Ayn Rand stepped forward, patted him gently, and called softly, "Su Yicheng." Without opening his eyes, Su Yicheng suddenly stretched out his hand and pulled Ayn Rand to sit on his lap, burying his head in her shoulder and wrapping his hands around her waist. Ayn Rand was stunned for a while before he realized what he was doing. He reached out and patted him. "Su Yicheng, what's wrong with you? Are you drunk?" Muttering and frowning. "I told you not to drink. You don't even know how to take good care of your stomach." Su Yicheng slowly raised his head, looked at her with half-lidded eyes, smiled, and said, "I like the way you look when you go out with me." Ayn Rand was stunned for a moment, a little confused, and asked nervously, "What does it look like if I go out with you?" I went out with him to a formal occasion, and I didn't dress up deliberately, so I just left it as it was. Su Yicheng buried his head in her neck again and said dully, "You will call me Yicheng outside." He liked the way she called him 2 names, her voice was soft and waxy, and it sounded particularly nice. After he said this, Ayn Rand realized that this seemed to be the case. Outside, because of his special status, as his wife, she needed to be generous and generous. She was always afraid that she was not good enough, so she always talked to him. When we are outside together, we are always a little reserved. Of course, her reserved colleague has not forgotten that she has to play the role of a government wife, looking at him tenderly and calling his name tenderly. And at home, although he was very kind to her, no matter how nice he was, maybe because of the short time, she was still a little awkward, and she still couldn't let go, so she would always take him by name. Call him by his first name. "Do you mind?" Ayn Rand asked uncertainly. Su Yicheng let her go and looked into her eyes steadily. It seemed that he really needed to communicate with her about the issue of title. With this in mind, he asked seriously, "Do you think a wife will always have her first name? Is this a normal image for a person with a surname to call his husband?" And Ran was stunned for a moment, and finally shook his head, as if it sounded a little awkward. Su Yicheng nodded with a smile, shaking her head as a satisfactory answer to his plan, and then asked, "Then what will you call me in the future?" And Ran thought for a while and called out tentatively, "A Cheng." It seemed that everyone called him that, including father-in-law, mother-in-law, grandpa, and Yeziwan, and President Xiao seemed to do the same. Su Yicheng frowned, leaned forward to kiss her lips, bit her lips lightly, and said, "I prefer you to call me Yicheng." And Ran chuckled and responded to his kiss. Her lips pressed against his lips and she whispered, "Yuchen." I don't know whether her soft voice has a particularly seductive charm, or whether the alcohol in her body is taking effect at this time. The kiss that was originally just a little punitive became a little passionate, and Su Yicheng held her with great strength. He slowly intensified, as if he wanted to rub her into his own bones and blood, making the two of them become one. And Ran never thought that this kiss would get out of hand. His embrace became more and more passionate, and his kiss became deeper and deeper. Although she wanted to push him away, when she wanted to reach out and push him away, she just felt she could feel that the two of them had changed from the sitting position to half lying. And his hands had already reached down from the hem of her clothes, lighting fire everywhere on her body. Soon, the clothes were torn off, and his kiss gradually followed his lips downwards little by little. "Well." And Ran whimpered, pushed him away with her last bit of strength, and looked at him, You haven't yet." Su Yicheng put his hands on both sides of her and looked straight at her. The fire in his eyes seemed to be able to burn people. The sweat on his forehead wetted his hair. The shirt on his body had been ripped open at some point. The temperature of the whole person and the entire room rose. "Are you sure you don't want it?" Su Yicheng looked at her under him, his voice as tight as a string, hoarse and low. And Ran looked at him steadily, looking at the desire he was holding back for her, and also saw herself in his eyes. She couldn't say anything if she refused, so she raised her hand and touched his face gently, and said softly, "Reply room, please go back to the room." She didn't know whether it was you or the temperature in the room that burned her. Her face was so red that it seemed like she could bleed. Su Yicheng chuckled, said nothing, picked her up by the waist, kicked open the door and went in. And then regretted it, a very special regret. I regretted that I should not have been so soft-hearted for a moment, which made my whole body feel like it was about to fall apart the next day. Lying peacefully on the bed, the sunshine outside the window is very good, and it shines faintly into the room through the curtains. The bright sunshine reminds you that it is not early, the people around you are no longer there, and the bed is already cold. After lying on the bed for a while with her eyes open, Ran held up her hands and tried to get up. The pain in her body once again reminded her of her madness last night. She scolded Su Yicheng several times in her heart, but she was a little envious of his strong physical strength. It was obviously him who worked hard last night, and if she remembered correctly, it should have been close to 1 o'clock in the morning before she fell asleep due to his torment last night. In the morning, she vaguely remembered that he got up on time at 6 o'clock to go to morning exercise, and it seemed that he was at work. He went back to the room and said something in her ear. "Can morning exercise really build up physical strength?" Ran muttered. Dragging her somewhat tired body out of bed, she took the change of clothes Su Yicheng had prepared for her in the morning from the bedside. She went directly into the bathroom, filled the water, and took a comfortable bath. When she came out, she looked at the bed. The alarm clock on my head has already advanced to 11 o'clock. I pinched my neck and went out. I was really hungry from last night. I went to the kitchen to see if there was anything I could eat, but I saw a sticky note left by Su Yicheng on the refrigerator in the kitchen. There are sandwiches in the refrigerator, warm them up and eat them. There was a faint smile on the corner of her mouth, and she felt warm in her heart because of his such thoughtfulness. In the afternoon, Enran bought some fruit to visit Lin Li. When he was at the door, he could still see Cheng Xiang waiting outside. He seemed to have become much more haggard these days, and even the newly sprouted stubble, she didn't clean it up, and it didn't look as handsome as before. If Lin Li had seen Cheng Xiang like this, maybe she wouldn't have fallen headfirst into it and couldn't get out. She has always loved beautiful men, but things are unpredictable. Who knows what they will do? It actually got to where it is today. Is Lin Li okay? Cheng Xiang asked in front of her before entering the ward. Enran looked at him and couldn't help feeling a little emotional. They used to be very good friends, but now. He said calmly, very good. Cheng Xiang nodded, with a faint wry smile on his lips, that's good. She glanced at him and advised, go back, Lin Li won't see you this time. Lin Li was completely heartbroken and in pain, so she let go completely. Cheng Xiang really hurt her too deeply this time. He ran away in front of so many people at the wedding and lost her child because of him. These are all things that would be unbearable for others, let alone him. He also let Lin Li taste it all at once. How could he not give up? I'm just waiting here. It doesn't matter if you don't see me, as long as I know she's fine, Cheng Xiang said calmly while looking at the ward. If I had known that today, why would it be necessary in the first place? It's all your own fault that the relationship between you has reached this point. You take Lin Li's love too much for granted, and you don't cherish her feelings for you at all. And Ran was a little angry. Accusation. Cheng Xiang smiled bitterly and said, I never thought about leaving her. Then what did you do? He went to see that woman again and again, and even ran away because of that woman at the wedding. He wanted others to think what he wanted, and what Lin Li thought. Cheng Xiang sat there, unable to say a word. And Ran stood there for a while, then finally shook his head and turned directly into the ward. Lin Li seemed to be getting better today than yesterday. Seeing her come in, she smiled faintly and said, don't you have a design to work on? You don't have to come to my place every day. If you don't want me to come, then you should get me out of the hospital as soon as possible. Don't stay in this hospital all the time. It's so unlucky. And Ran put the fruit aside. Mother Lin happened to come out of the bathroom. When she saw Enran, she hurriedly smiled and said, Enran, come on, he said, and poured water for Enran politely. No one knew them here, and Lin Li didn't have many friends. Lin Li was hospitalized this time, and everything happened thanks to the help of Enran and his wife. Come, drink some water first. Enran quickly stretched out his hands to take it and said, Mother Lin, don't be so polite to me. Sitting down on the sofa nearby, Enran casually asked about Lin Li's condition today. Lin's mother told Enran that everything was normal in Lin Li and that she would be discharged after staying in the hospital for another 2 days. In addition, she also said that as long as Lin Li is discharged from the hospital, they will arrange to return to her hometown. Anyway, Lin Li has no job here now, so going back will be convenient for the two of them to take care of her. After hearing what Lin Li said about going back, Enran quickly turned to look at Lin Li and asked, do you want to go back? She thought that Lin Li needed to rest for a while, but she never thought that she would leave Zhangcheng. Lin Li glanced at her lightly, smiled slightly, and nodded, yes. Lin Li, you. Lin Li interrupted her and said, I know what you want to say, but I have thought about it. My parents are not young anymore, and there are no other brothers and sisters in the family. If I stay in Zhangcheng, they will stay in Zhangcheng at home, we are so far apart. If they feel any discomfort, no one will be around. So, I think I'd better go back. They have raised me for so many years, and now it's time for me to spend time with them. Lin Li, there may be many things in Zhangcheng that make you unhappy, but there are also many memories that make you happy. Are you really willing to leave? Taking care of Father Lin and Mother Lin is just an excuse. She just wants to escape here sadly. Lin Li shook her head lightly and said, all the happy memories are related to him, and I don't want to think about it anymore. Whether you say I'm escaping or saying I don't dare to face it, there are some things that I need time to forget. And Ran was silent and looked at her for a while before slowly speaking, have you really decided? Looking at her, Lin Li nodded firmly, well, it's decided. There are indeed many beautiful and happy memories here, but those memories were all given by that person, and he also gave her the most painful thing. Memories, those memories, are painful to the bone every time you recall them. If you stay in Zhongcheng, you will feel more pain than happiness. She has lived for others for 10 years, but now she no longer wants to live for others. From now on, she wants to be herself. Knowing that she had made up her mind, and Ran said nothing more and just nodded to respect her decision. Maybe leaving is the best choice for her. Since she has to start over, changing places may give her a new life. Maybe there won't be many opportunities for them to meet in the future, but if this is the best thing for her, then how can she object? And Ran sat with Lin Li for a while before leaving. When he left, Cheng Xiang was still sitting on the plastic chair outside. When he saw her coming out, he nodded to her lightly. And Ran looked at him, hesitating to speak, but finally said nothing and turned to leave. Perhaps because she knew that Lin Li was leaving soon, and Ran felt a little depressed. She walked slowly along the corridor of the hospital, feeling an indescribable gloom in her heart. The hospital building just blocks the sun in the hospital garden. There are many family members walking back and forth on the lawn with the patients, and some people are sitting on the stone benches nearby talking and chatting. And Ran passed by and couldn't help but take a look, but by coincidence, he saw a familiar little figure, sitting alone on the stone bench next to him, holding a toy in his hand, but with a stern expression on his face. Seems to be in a bad mood. And Ran stepped forward and squatted down in front of the child. This child was none other than Johan's son, the child who was severely allergic to her seafood pasta that day. Only then did he remember the supermarket in front of the hospital 2 days ago. When he met Johan, he said that his kid had a high fever and was hospitalized here. He didn't expect to meet him here by such a coincidence today. Hey, kid, do you remember Auntie? And Ran greeted the child with a smile. The child looked at and Ran intently, and it seemed that it took him a while to recognize and Ran. He glanced at her, then lowered his head and continued to stare at the toy transformer in his hand. And Ran sat down next to him, looked at him and asked, for such a man, where is your father? Hearing this, the child looked up at her, said nothing, then turned his head directly and continued to stare at the toy in his hand. And Ran was disappointed, but she didn't care, and decided to sit next to him and wait for the person who took care of him to accompany him until the person who took care of him came back. A young nurse came over at this time. She looked around and seemed to find no one. She asked the child, Jojiaben, have you called your father? When will he come to take you out of the hospital? The child looked up at the little nurse in front of him and finally shook his head. The little nurse frowned with some dissatisfaction and muttered, how can there be such irresponsible parents of children? This child has been in recovery for several days, and he has not even seen him or her. He has nothing to do with being discharged from the hospital. How can you be such a parent? And Ran seemed to understand the reason, glanced at the child, quickly stood up and asked the nurse, Ms. Nurse, what did you just say? Did the child's father never come over? The nurse looked at her and asked, who are you? Well, I know this child's father, and Ran explained. The nurse nodded clearly and said, since you are a friend of the child's parents, please help contact the child's father. Why has he not been seen for several days? He left the child in the hospital and left. The child's high fever has gone away, and his health is no longer serious. You ask him to go through the discharge procedures for the child. It's not good to keep occupying the bed like this. Besides, there are a lot of germs and colds in the hospital. It is not good for the child to stay in the hospital like this, he said, turning around and walking back. And Ran was a little surprised. She remembered that the last time she saw Johan was 3 days ago. Could it be that he hadn't been to the hospital in the past 3 days? Could it be that he simply forgot that his son was in the hospital? And Ran looked at the child and saw her lowering her head and asked, "Hasn't your father been here these days? Isn't there anyone by your side to accompany you?" The child was probably a little introverted and didn't speak, just shook his head silently. And Ran only felt that this person was too irresponsible. He could ignore his own child for several days even in the hospital. This was too much. I was about to ask my child Johan's phone number, but then I remembered that he gave me his phone number that day because of the necklace. He took out his cell phone and searched for the call history, and dialed the number. The phone rang for a while before someone picked it up. Johan on the phone seemed a little surprised by Ran's call. After all, they were not familiar with each other and had not yet reached the time to call each other to greet each other. "Hello. Mr. Johan, have you forgotten that you have a son in the hospital? I am right next to your son. A nurse came over just now and asked you when you would arrange for the child to be discharged. The child's high fever has completely recovered. If you continue to stay in the hospital if you have nothing to do, you will easily become infected with bacteria and viruses." Johan on the phone was stunned for a while, and then he said calmly, "I have something to do at my temporary company, so I left first. I have been on a business trip these days because of the business trip." He didn't have time to go to the hospital. "I don't know anything about the child." "Then no one else has been arranged to take care of the child. Even if he is too busy and has no time, he should find someone else to take care of the child. The child is so young, so he can rest assured if he stays in the hospital alone." Hearing this, Johan was obviously silent for a while on the other end of the phone, and then he said after a long time, "Can you give your child the phone to listen to?" And Ran glanced at the child, nodded in agreement, handed the phone to the child sitting next to her, and said, "Your father wants to tell you." The child stared at her blankly for a while, then took the phone from her hand, put it next to her ear, and called softly, "Daddy." And Ran didn't know what they said and wrote. She saw the child holding some words and gently responded with a few yes and no. After a while, he handed the phone back to Ran. Ran took the phone and put it to her ear again. "Hello. Can you please sit with the child in the hospital for a while? I am now arranging for someone to pick up the child and leave the hospital. I will ask that person to call you later," Johan said on the phone. In this case, Ran had no choice but to nod in agreement, hang up the phone, and sit with the child for a while. Within half an hour, the phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. Ran knew that it was probably someone arranged by Johan. When I picked up the phone, it was a man's voice directly asking them where they were, saying that he was already at the entrance of the hospital and would be there in a moment. Ran felt that the voice was somewhat familiar, but didn't think much about it. She just told him that she and her child were now on the green lawn of the hospital on the first floor. The man hung up the phone and waited for a few more minutes. Ran reached out to touch the child's head when she suddenly heard someone calling her from behind. She turned around and saw Josei looking at her in surprise. "Gu and Ran." Josei was a little surprised that the person accompanying Johan's son turned out to be Gu and Ran. He just had a meeting at the company and suddenly received a call from Johan, asking him to come to the hospital to pick up his son. However, he was on a business trip out of town and had no way to come back. He hoped that he could help take care of his son in the past 2 days. He agreed immediately, postponed the meeting, and rushed to the hospital as soon as possible. Unexpectedly, the contact person Johan mentioned was Gu and Ran. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1094. I understand why she was so vague. Zhao Qiwi looked at Luo Xiaoxian with a confused expression. Sister-in-law, if you want to say that you are fat now because the rice cooked by my mother is too oily, just say so. Why do you have to take so many turns? Hateful. Luo Xiaoxian glared at her bitterly. I used myself as an example with good intentions to prevent you from making the same mistakes as me in the future. If I had known you thought this way, I wouldn't have told you. Okay, you two sisters-in-law will chat slowly, and we will go back to the room to rest, Chu Xia said as she got up and walked out. Jun Daodu and Jun Qiaqiao also quickly got up and followed them out. You guys, are you here just to watch our jokes? Zhao Qiwi walked to the door and waved to a few people with a smile. After closing the door, he sat next to Luo Xiaoxian again. Sister-in-law, in fact, I have always wanted to have a good chat with you, but every time the words come to my lips, I swallow them back. Today I just use this as an introduction. Let's talk about the things that are deep in our hearts, okay? Okay, Luo Xiaoxian responded happily, paused briefly, and asked, did mother tell you something? Is there something I did that dissatisfied mother? That's not true. Mom just asked me to take good care of you. Zhao Qiwi sighed and continued, because I chose to get married and get pregnant before my brother went on a mission. My parents and grandparents are extremely grateful to my sister-in-law and wish I could give her to her holding it in the palm of your hand. How can there be any dissatisfaction? I am also very grateful for my sister-in-law's choice. My brother is the hope of our family. If he really has something, our family will collapse. If there is a man and a woman, there is still hope for everyone. Of course, when I say this, I don't mean that I think there will definitely be something wrong with my brother. I mean that in that state, everyone's thoughts are like this. I believe that this is the reason my sister-in-law was thinking when she made such a decision, right? Luo Xiaoxian nodded calmly, yes, she did think so. Otherwise, at her age, there would be no need to get married and have children so early. There is nothing to hide. But from another perspective, because of my sister-in-law's choice, my parents always felt that they owed her something when they were getting along with her, so they chose not to say some things that should or should not be said. However, after all, there are differences in concepts between elders and younger generations. If they are together for a long time, some minor conflicts will inevitably arise. Holding back is actually a way that is not good for both parties. Seeing that Luo Xiaoxian's expression was a little nervous, Zhao Qiwi explained, sister-in-law, don't get me wrong. I don't mean that there is a huge conflict between sister-in-law and mother. I am just making a metaphor. Luo Xiaoxian sighed, why are you making metaphors for no reason? There must be something wrong. That's why you said that. Sister Qiwi, just tell me the truth. I'm not the kind of person who can't listen to other people's opinions. Sister-in-law, let me make a suggestion first. Don't call me Sister Qiwi from now on. After all, my brother and I are brothers and sisters. It's really awkward to have separate opinions like this. Luo Xiaoxian responded obediently, okay, I will change my story, Qi Hui, I want to listen to the truth. My mother didn't say anything to me, but from her expression and state, I could tell that it was not easy for her to take care of my sister-in-law these past few months. The night before I left, my mother warned me for half the night, for fear of losing my sister-in-law. Later, I couldn't bear it anymore and asked her if she was not willing to leave. She hesitated before telling me that my father used to be a laborer. A laborer means going to a place far away from home to do heavy work, building roads and reservoirs, etc., which was a unique labor method of that era. She had been taking good care of herself for a month or two, so she had nothing to worry about this time. As for women with bad intentions, she is even less worried. It's not like she doesn't know what kind of temper her father is. When he was young, no one could seduce him. Now that I'm older, it's even less possible. And she followed everyone's wishes and went back to ask Aunt Shaxiang to come over, hoping that her sister-in-law would be happier. She also emphasized that there was no conflict between her and her sister-in-law, but she was afraid of wronging her sister-in-law. At this time, my sister-in-law definitely wants to be with her own mother more. She cannot care less about her sister-in-law's mood for the sake of her so-called face. I say this not to blame my sister-in-law, nor to ask my sister-in-law to change anything. I just want my sister-in-law to understand that my mother truly cares for my sister-in-law and truly treats my sister-in-law as her own daughter. However, even if a daughter-in-law and a mother-in-law are very close, it is difficult for them to truly be like real mother-in-law, especially a sister-in-law and a mother-in-law who don't get along at all and live under the same roof all of a sudden without the lubrication of a brother. Agent. I just want my sister-in-law to understand what my mother wants, so that when the baby is born and my mother comes to take care of her during the confinement period, my sister-in-law and my mother can get along more harmoniously. Of course, I believe that Aunt Shaxiang is definitely willing to stay and serve her sister-in-law during the confinement period, but even if Aunt Shaxiang is here, mother will definitely come over. Regardless of whether brother comes back by then or not, this is my opinion. The difference is that if she can't serve her sister-in-law in person, she will definitely feel particularly uncomfortable. So, sister-in-law, after a while, can you take the initiative to call your mother and tell her that you miss her? If she says she wants to come over, sister-in-law, don't stop her, okay? Luo Xiaoqing really didn't expect that there would be so many reasons for her mother-in-law's departure. She really thought that her mother-in-law went back because she was worried about her father-in-law. Now when she heard what her sister-in-law said, she realized that she was totally wrong. This also made her a little confused. Although after getting married, she didn't talk to her mother-in-law as casually as talking to her own mother, but she never minced words. The only thing is that I am embarrassed to say it outright like I would treat my own mother when it comes to things I don't like, but this will always take time to get through. But now that I know that the root reason why my mother-in-law returned to her hometown is her, the pressure in my heart suddenly becomes heavier. Chi-Hui, I have no problem with what you said. It's okay for my mother to come over now, but I'm very confused now. I don't want to make my mother-in-law unhappy, but there are some things I really can't think of. Sister-in-law, you misunderstood me. I really didn't mean to blame you, and my mother would never blame you. Sighing, Zhao Qiwi scratched his head tangledly. If I knew you had such a misunderstanding, I wouldn't enough said. I'm actually worried that I might not be able to spare time to stay with my sister-in-law when you are in confinement. People in my mother's generation were very cautious in doing things. Even if I tried to persuade her, she wouldn't be able to change it. There was nothing she could do about it. I can only persuade my sister-in-law to change, but in fact, I am a bit forcing others to make things difficult for me. Hey. Okay, I understand what you mean. Luo Xiaoqing rolled her eyes at her. I'm shocked. Couldn't you have said this earlier? I thought you were also dissatisfied with me, so that's why you came here to talk about all this. I was just worried about what I should do to satisfy you, huh? Zhao Qiwi. How dare she almost do bad things with good intentions? Don't stare at me with that expression. You were very clear when you persuaded me here. You will know when it is your turn. People who were not familiar with you suddenly become a family. No matter how straightforward you are, I know how to handle it a little bit. In fact, after thinking about it later, I felt that this kind of manipulation would make it difficult for both parties to get close. However, human instinct is like this. Now that I have said it, I will pay more attention to it in the future. However, it is impossible for me to get along with my mother-in-law just like my mother in a short time. It is very simple. No matter what I do between me and my mother-in-law, there will never be such misunderstandings. Between me and my mother-in-law, no matter what I do, there will be no misunderstanding. No matter what you do, this kind of misunderstanding may occur. This kind of thing is definitely not something that can be avoided by just paying attention. Only by getting along with each other for a long time in the future and slowly getting along with each other can we truly get close to each other from the heart without any scruples. I'm too impatient. Zhao Qiwi smiled sheepishly. Indeed, I have no experience in getting along with my mother-in-law and father-in-law. I just said what I saw and thought, but I ignored these objective facts. The authorities are confused by the bystanders. Well, right. By the way, there is an older sister and younger sister in Battalion Commander Liu's family, right? Luo Xiaoqian smirked and blinked. When the time comes, you will be able to get along with them and won't find fault with me at all. Because of the early summer, we have a foundation of understanding and trust between you and me, so I can say it without any scruples. You and them are complete strangers. When the time comes, they will only help Commander Lu plot against you. Hey hey. Zhao Qiwi looked at her sister-in-law kissing her with a dark look. What on earth was this nonsense? Why is she gloating about misfortune? I'm sure I have nothing to fear if they plot against you. I'm already married, and I'm still busy with my own affairs. How can I have the free time to go to my brother's house to give advice? And Zhao Qiwi also gave her a naughty smile. Don't forget, I am a college student now. Do you think they will have the confidence to boss me around? Indeed, for ordinary people, the name of college student is a very deceiving name. After coughing to cover up, Luo Xiaoqian looked at her sideways. Are you kidding me that I didn't get into college? Can we not think too much about it? Zhao Qiwi looked at her with a headache. You know that's not what I meant. That's what you mean, so I decided that after the baby is born, I will also go to college to prevent the baby from looking down on me in the future. Sister-in-law, are you really lying? Am I going to lie about this? Luo Xiaoqian looked excited. No, I'm going to tell Chu Xia and ask her to start tutoring for me now. Zhao Qiwi. The so-called people who listen to the wind are like the rain. Are they referring to this kind of people? R1152. First marriage then love. Mr. Mayor, please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1095. Are you really lying? Chu Xia glanced at the time on the wall clock and couldn't help but stretched out her hand to touch Luo Xiaoqian's forehead. It's not midnight, and I don't have a fever. Go, go, go. Luo Xiaoqian pulled her hand away. I'm here to talk to you about business. How can you look down on people so much? Is it possible that you are only allowed to make progress, but you don't want others to make progress? That's not what I meant. It was already discussed before that you should take the exam. You worked hard for a while, but then you only spent 3 days fishing and 2 days drying nets. Later, you said that instead of making it difficult for yourself, it is better to choose the one that suits you. I suddenly changed my mind, especially at this time. Can I not be shocked? Chu Xia turned to look at Zhao Qiwi, who was sitting silently on the side installing a background board. Sister Qiwi, what did you say to her to stimulate her to this point? Zhao Qiwi smiled helplessly. I didn't say much, just about the relationship between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Then she suddenly gloated that I still have 2 sisters-in-law, and they will suffer in the future. I told her that I am a college student, and it shouldn't be difficult for me, and then she said she wanted to take the college entrance examination, and then she came to you. It's always been her style to follow the wind. Chu Xia joked and looked at Luo Xiaoqian seriously. Have you really made a decision? It would be a bit embarrassing if you give up halfway again. Really, I am absolutely serious this time, but you have to teach me well. I have almost forgotten what I learned before. Luo Xiaoqian smiled sheepishly. Actually, I'm really not good at this, but For the sake of our children and our own future, we still have to work hard. Otherwise, if we just take it easy when we are young, we will only regret it when we are older. It's not as serious as you said. My brother will definitely not force this matter. As for the child, Chu Xia smiled and touched her belly. Whether I can respect you or not is not related to this diploma. I know this. I just think it would be a pity not to give it a try now that I have this convenience. Sighed. Luo Xiaoqing said helplessly, and all of you are better than me. If I don't work harder, how will I have any status in the family in the future? Okay, stop feeling emotional, no one is stopping you. Chu Xia looked at her funny, but one thing I can tell you for sure. If you act like a resentful woman, the child will be I will never respect you. I hate it. How do you look like a resentful woman? Luo Xiaoqing glared at her dissatisfied. I've been left too behind by you, so I suddenly feel a little nervous. Knowing that what she said was true, Chu Xia stopped teasing her. He said seriously, don't worry, we can do whatever you want, and I will fully cooperate with you. I knew our Xia was the best to me. Luo Xiaoqing hugged Chu Xia's arm and rubbed it back and forth. Bai Bei Children's Shoes, who was lying there playing happily with his brother, stared at her and curled his lips. Ouch started to howl, and Chu Xia shook her head helplessly. Who on earth did this damn boy follow? I'm really convinced. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand to pat the little guy, who was howling vigorously. The little thing immediately stopped making noises, then waved his little hands and laughed. This little guy not only looks like your teacher, but he also has a similar personality. I just hugged your arm, and he was so reluctant. What would he do if I hugged you? Luo Xiaoqing said as he spoke. Reaching out to hug Chu Xia, as if to verify what she said, the little Bai Bei kid who was smiling happily glanced at her and grinned, wow wow wow. Okay, okay. Zhao Qiwi felt distressed and quickly stepped forward to pat the little guy, and glared at her unreliable sister-in-law. He is only so good, sister-in-law, please don't make trouble with him, okay? We can't spoil him. Chu Xia didn't care. She looked at Zhao Qiwi with a smile and said, sister, don't worry about him, just let him cry. How can you do this when you are so young and possessive so much? The child is only a few months old. What if he breaks down crying if you let him cry? Children can't cry. Chu Xia said as she reached out and pulled away Zhao Qiwi's hand that was patting Bai Bei, and then gently poked the little guy's forehead. If you keep acting like this, mom will only like brother doesn't like you anymore. Giggle. The little guy was playing with him in the early summer, and he immediately became happy again. Zhao Qiwi saw a dark line. I thought you were really cruel and wanted to ignore him, but it turned out that I was too sentimental. Chu Xia, I can never trust you again. I really want to correct this problem for him. Chu Xia said as she reached out to pick up Nan Nan, who was lying there and staring at her smile, and looked at Bai Beidao semi-seriously. From now on, if you don't obey me, I will only hug my brother, not you. Ah, ah. When the little guy saw his brother being picked up, he stretched out his claws and swung forward in a hurry. Chu Xia stepped back and refused to pay attention to him. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Purpose unable to reach it, the little thing howled again. What's wrong? Zhao Yulan hurriedly opened the door and came in. When she saw several people gathered around the bed, howling at the top of her lungs as her little grandson lay there, she quickly stepped forward to hug the little guy. Mom, leave him alone. Chu Xia reached out and pulled Zhao Yulan down. The little thing is only a few months old and is so possessive. I am trying to correct his problem. If I don't correct it now, it will be even harder in the future. You child, a child who is only a few months old must want to be with whomever he kisses. How can you call it possessive? As he said this, Zhao Yulan did not forcefully pick up Bai Bei. Regarding this issue, her daughter had told her before that the mother and daughter had reached an agreement. When one was in charge of the child, no matter whether it was right or wrong, the other could not forcefully intervene. Therefore, she felt distressed now. You have to endure it first. Mom, don't underestimate these little guys. You think he is ignorant. In fact, he knows everything. If you can't shape his character well before he is 3 years old, it will be difficult to change him in the future. So, Mom, listen to me. From now on, when I'm not at home, you can't spoil this little thing. You see, Nanan is much more sensible than him. He never fights, grabs, or is squeamish. This little naughty boy is simply more difficult to deal with than a girl. You kid, where did you get all these fallacies? Seeing her little grandson crying out of breath, Zhao Yulan inhaled in distress. Xia, there must be a reason for the change, not just a little bit. Just hold on to the little things and let Mom hug him, okay? No, Chu Xia categorically refused. Seeing that her mother was about to cry, she handed Nanan to her, then moved forward, looking at the little thing that was howling and peeking at her seriously. Baby, if you want your mother to hug you like a brother, you have to be obedient and don't just use this trick when something doesn't go your way. Your mother can forgive you this time, but you remember that from now until you are 3 years old, your mother will give you 3 chances. If you use up these opportunities and still can't change, your mother will never like you again. Moreover, every time you take the opportunity, your mother will punish you. The punishment is to stop hugging you except for giving you food for a week. Regardless of whether you can understand it or not, your mother will do it according to this. Isn't this playing the harp to a cow? Luo Xiaoxian couldn't help but whisper, if he could listen to you, I would go back to the other way. For a child who is only over half a year old, your demands are too high. Look, Luo Xiaoxian quickly stopped crying, smiled fawningly at Chu Xia, and stretched out her little paws for a hug. Luo Xiaoxian was completely frozen there. Zhao Qiwei also looked at the mother and son hugging each other with a look of surprise. Xia, does he really understand or is he pretending to understand? It would be weird if he really understood. He just stopped crying when I reached out to comfort him. Chu Xia looked at the two of them funny, do you really believe it? How can a child who is only over half a year old understand? I just started to instill it in him from now on. Moreover, I hugged him only after he stopped crying. Nanan was also hugged by my mother. The more times he did this, he would naturally understand what I meant. Of course, when he becomes sensible, my plan will be fully implemented. What I said about giving him 3 chances is not a joke, but the time for it to really take effect is not now. Okay, I've learned a lot. Luo Xiaoxian smacked her lips. If your method works, I will educate my children in the same way in the future. I will talk to Daodu later and let her learn a little bit too. She couldn't help but look up and down at Chu Xia curiously. Where did you learn these fallacies? It's in the book. Chu Xia said matter-of-factly, when you become a mother, of course you should also read books on how to raise children. I don't want to raise them crookedly. I will be the one who suffers like that. You. Zhao Yulan looked at her daughter helplessly. Everything she does is done in the same way, but I think it's too distressing for such a young child to cry like this. When you were a child, my mother never made you cry like this. Isn't this why you are growing crooked? Haven't grown crooked yet? If I hadn't grown crooked, would I have had the chance to be your daughter? Of course, if you think like this in your heart, you can never say it with your mouth. Chu Xia smiled and said, Mom, how many of your daughters are so smart? How many of them are the same? Besides, it's good to be a prodigal son who can never be exchanged for gold, but there are also those who will never return to the Yangtze River. Wouldn't it be troublesome if it really happened like that? Therefore, in order to avoid trouble in the future, it is better to harden your heart a little now. This is for his own good. Besides, boys should be raised rough. Zhao Yulan. Why does she basically never win when arguing with her daughter? To be continued. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 1096. After the Chuxia group went to school the next day, Zhao Yulan told Mrs. Zhao what her daughter had said last night. While talking, she glanced at her little grandson distressedly. Mom, don't you think Bai's eyes are a bit swell? Mrs. Zhao looked at her little great-grandson for a while, and shook her head in a funny way. You are really capable of making trouble. For such a young child, if you just cry for a while, how can your eyes be swollen? Hey! Zhao Yulan sighed, I didn't even sleep last night. My ears were filled with Bai's crying. If I hadn't promised Xia Buliuan to mix in, I would have hugged Bai to myself. Let's go and watch. Yulan, I really want to talk to you about this. Mrs. Zhao looked at her daughter seriously. If you think about what Xia has done in the past 2 years, is there anything unreliable? Without thinking, Zhao Yulan quickly replied, that's not true. Isn't that enough? The child has grown up and knows more than us, so just follow her. Moreover, she is the child's biological mother. Do you think she can not feel sorry for the child? The older generation has said that if the mother controls the child will be upright. We are afraid that the child will suffer a little injustice, but we must also admit that children who control them strictly are promising. Of course, our Xia is an exception, but we can't let Nan Nan and Bei go just because Xia is an exception. Now it seems that Nan Nan is more sensible than Bei, but we can't let Bei make trouble just because he is sensible. Temper. Bei always has to compete with Nanan for favor. If you don't care now, when he is older, it will become a matter of course. Nanan was only born a few minutes earlier than Bei. If you let him give in to Bei for the rest of his life, what's the matter? Do you think it's appropriate to let Bei take the lead? Moreover, do you think Nanan will willingly let Bei live his whole life? No matter which one you are, no matter how good your temper is, you cannot spend your whole life giving without expecting anything in return. Even if it's mother and son, are you really just giving? When you love her and raise her, don't you also hope that she will be able to make a difference when she grows up, know that she cares about you, and treat you well when you are old? This is not a pleasant thing to say, but is it just that? The children are still young now, but we as elders must think about these things first to avoid a bad relationship between the brothers in the future. Just look at your eldest brother and your second brother, for example. When you were a child, your eldest brother would let your second brother do everything. He would never compete with your second brother for delicious food and fun. Over time, your second brother got used to being taken care of by your eldest brother. Occasionally, he felt that your eldest brother was inferior to him. He takes advantage of others and is always full of opinions. He is boring and won't say anything. He just likes to show off his face. It was your father who first noticed the sign in him and talked with him for a long time, saying that your eldest brother didn't owe him anything, so he couldn't let him do everything. If he only knew how to get a little bit from your eldest brother, if you don't pay, one day your eldest brother will stop caring about him at all. At that time, your second brother was 17, and he was not at the age to fully listen to advice. He said yes, but in his heart he did not take your father's words seriously. It was not until later that he followed your eldest brother to become a husband and saw too many other people's brothers. The relationship between them has changed a bit. However, his temper is already like that. Even if he knows the truth, it is impossible to treat your eldest brother the way your eldest brother treats him, especially your second sister-in-law, who is also a talkative. If your eldest brother is not as knowledgeable as them, I guess the two of them stopped interacting with each other a long time ago. Zhao Yulan nodded, yes, compared with the eldest brother, the second brother's character is indeed unlikable, otherwise I wouldn't have been unable to get close to him. Mom and your father don't want your brother-sister relationship to be bad, and they never criticize your second brother in front of you. Now that you have reached this age, there is nothing to be taboo about. I used to be really unhappy that my mother and father always talked to my second brother, especially my second sister-in-law, who was so unreasonable. My father and mother still let her go, so I was very angry. I remember one time I had a fight with my mother over this matter, and I hugged Chusia back home angrily. She also swore never to return to her parents' home, but as a result, her father and mother walked to Dalan village in the middle of the night and brought us half a bag of noodles. At this point, Zhao Yulan choked up and couldn't continue, and suddenly realizing that she used to be so ignorant. Yes, mother and father feel bad when they see you carrying Chusia away, but if we force you to stay, your second sister-in-law will really be able to pack her things and go back to her parents' home. The problem is, if she really leaves, your second brother will still have to invite her, and he will have to bring her things there. After a pause, Ms. Zhao smiled and shook her head. Your father and I finally gave it to you. How could you let your second brother send you the food you saved? We have no choice but to let you go back, and then bring the food we saved for you in the middle of the night. Sighing, Ms. Zhao smiled bitterly. Things were really hard back then. I'll meet your father. I worry about your future, but I didn't expect that you would have the life you have today. Xia, what's wrong? Zhao Yulan panicked when she turned around and saw her daughter with tears streaming down her face. She hurriedly stepped forward and held her daughter's hand. What happened? Is it Xiaomi's side? Ms. Zhao also looked worried. Her granddaughter came back at this time and was crying like this, which made her think more. No, Zhou Mikang is fine over there, and nothing happened. I was just so touched when I heard what grandma and mother said. Chusia sniffed, looking embarrassed. These things, really speaking, did not have much to do with her, because she was not her in early summer at that time. However, such feelings were so precious in the northern countryside where patriarchal preference was prevalent. Her tears were filled with emotion, joy, and longing. Yes, even if I stay here for a few years and have truly integrated into this era and the family here, the deepest part of my heart is still engraved with longing that I will never forget. Even though she knew that her biological parents and grandparents were living well, she still couldn't help but care about them. I wonder if Chusia, who had been reborn over there, was also concerned about the elders here like her? Zhao Yulan and Ms. Zhao didn't know the complicated thoughts in her heart, so they both breathed a sigh of relief. Then, Ms. Zhao looked at her funny. You kid, what's so touching? I'm going to fight with your grandpa isn't the same reason your mother is good to you as your mother is good to you. So I am very, very lucky to be born in such a family. Chusia stepped forward and hugged Ms. Zhao, gave her a loud bang on her forehead, then hugged Zhao Yulan and gave her a sip, and then rushed proudly. Bai Bei, who was staring at her with big wet eyes, smiled and said, "You little bastard, I won't kiss you." As he spoke, he reached out and kissed Nanan on the forehead. Ouch, 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 ouch. In an instant, Bai Bei's protest sounded. Looking at her howling and out-of-breath little grandson, Zhao Yulan was so angry that she slapped her daughter. He is only a few months old, why do you bully him like this? You did this on purpose. How could you be so serious, mother? Look at Nanan. Ms. Zhao looked surprised as she turned over with difficulty, stretched out her little hand to pat the little guy Bai Bei who was crying so hard. Isn't this too sensible? Zhao Yulan and Chusia were shocked when they saw this situation. This behavior was too beyond their understanding. After all, the child is only about half a year old. What's even more amazing is that when Nanan's little hand touched Bai Bei, the little guy who was howling with great energy immediately stopped crying, grinned, and started dancing. Zhao Yulan couldn't help but said, I think our worries are unnecessary. It looks like it to me. Ms. Zhao looked at Chusia, there's no need to deliberately do anything to make Bai Bei change. Under normal circumstances, don't be too biased towards him. As for the way Nanan gets along with him, it's up to you. It's up to them, twins are still different from other children. This. Chu Xia looked hesitant. To be honest, she quite liked the brothers' pattern. However, she was really worried that the two little guys would act like their elder uncle and second uncle. Looking at her granddaughter's expression, Mrs. Zhao made a guess. Did you listen to what I said to your mother? Ye Chu Xia nodded, with an embarrassed look on her face. When I came back, I saw what grandma and mother were talking about, so I didn't bother them. Mainly because I also wanted to hear grandma and mother's views. Don't take grandma's words to heart. Your uncle and uncle's situation is different. Moreover, your second uncle has a dull personality. Look at Bai, how lively he is, old Mrs. Zhao said as she reached out to poke the little guy. Originally, the happy little guy with the toothless grin was even more excited. Or, have you overcorrected? Chu Xia leaned over and looked at the two little guys, and tapped her fingers on the door of the two little guys respectively. Then they both waved their paws, making gestures to let her hug them, but the difference was that they stretched out south and south for a while. Turning around to glance at his brother, he took the initiative to change the gesture of asking for a hug to dancing. Little thing, you are too sensible. Chu Xia unconsciously picked up the obedient eldest son and kissed him on the forehead, then put him down and picked up his little son who was looking at him. Little bad guy, it's only a few minutes away, and you always ask your brother to give in to you? Forget it, since your brother doesn't care, my mother won't care about you anymore. Xia, do you have something to do when you come back at this time? Zhao Yulan glanced at the time and reminded, if you have something to do, you should get busy first. Your grandma and I are the children. I came back to get my notes. I was in a hurry this morning and forgot. Chu Xia said as she put down her smiling little son, walked to the bedside and opened the drawer to take out the notes. After taking 2 steps, she paused and turned around to ask. He said, by the way, Mom, why didn't you see Fat Ant? Zhao Yulan smiled and waved her hand, go back to class first. I will talk to you about this when you come back. R1152. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1097. How can I go to class with peace of mind when you look like this? Chu Xia turned around and looked at Zhao Yulan. Mom, what on earth did Fat Ant do? You. Zhao Yulan looked at her daughter helplessly. Why are you so worried? He. Chu Xia smiled flatteringly. You know I have a lot of things on my mind, so just tell me about it. Your Fat Ant has gone to Wan's home. Zhao Yulan couldn't help shaking her head in amusement as she said, she has always been enthusiastic and is helping Qian Yangxiang visit her husband's family. What do you mean? Chu Xia looked at her mother in confusion. Fat Ant has only been here for a few days, and Aunt Wan is already so good. Your Aunt Wan and she are very good at talking. Qian Yan has a boyfriend. Your Aunt Wan doesn't agree, but Qian Yan insists on being with a boy. Today the boy's parents are coming over. Cha Xiang is afraid that they will make trouble. I went over to help calm the atmosphere. Of course, although your Fat Ant is enthusiastic, she is not a nosy person. She came over because Qian Yan came to beg her yesterday. It seems that Fat Ant and Aunt Wan have a really good relationship, otherwise Qian Yan wouldn't ask her for help. Aunt Wan is also stubborn, and most people can't persuade her. By the way, why doesn't Aunt Wan agree? I had never heard of this in early summer, so I glanced at the time and saw that it was already past the time for class, so I just sat there calmly and listened to the gossip. We only met once, but the relationship between your Fat Ant and your Aunt Wan is closer than the relationship between me and your Aunt Wan. Zhao Yulan smiled and shook her head. Your mother will never have this ability in her life. Chu Xia looked at her mother funny. Mom, are you jealous? Of course not. Mom is just a little dissatisfied with my character. I'm just stupid and embarrassed to say nice things. Zhao Yulan sighed tangledly. I've known my faults all my life, but I just can't change them. This is not a problem. Everyone's personality is different. Fat Ant has a fiery, talkative, and noisy personality. If my mother had the same personality, her relationship with Fat Ant would not be so close. Ant Wan's personality is actually a bit similar to my mother's, so she and Fat Ant get along very well. This is what is called complementary personality. Husband and wife should have complementary personalities, and friends should also have complementary personalities. Also, there are many children in the family. Although they are all close to each other, they must be closest to the children with complementary personalities. Chu Xia said while looking at Mrs. Zhao, Grandma, you agree with me, right? That's the truth. Mrs. Zhao nodded in agreement. Your mother has 5 siblings, and I am the closest to your uncle and your mother. To be honest, I am closer to your mother. Well, not only character, but also character. Your uncle has a good character, but after all, your uncle is a man and has a rough heart. Your mother should be careful, otherwise, she will think about me and your grandpa in everything. Otherwise, if your mother later marries your father, your grandfather, and I will not be able to support her so much, let alone be so angry. At that time, we would just feel sorry for her and suffer along with her. Parents are all like this. At the time, they felt that what they did was definitely right, but looking back afterwards, it was really not necessarily the case. Indeed, compared to my eldest aunt and my second aunt, my mother's marriage is really the happiest. My father is absolutely obedient to my mother, whether it was before or now. The second uncle is kind to the second aunt, but the second aunt has no say at all in the family. As for the aunt and uncle, it is a typical rural marriage. The two of them are together just to live together, and they have little relationship with each other. Big relationship. Of course, there is also a big external reason for this, that is, her appearance has changed the fate of my father and mother. If it was the original early summer, there is no telling what kind of life my father and mother will be living now. However, since fate is like this, it means that God has already arranged such an outcome. Overall, my mother and father are the happiest. Does what Grandma just said mean that Aunt Wan's current objection is the same as Grandma's objection to my mother marrying my father? Chu Xia switched the topic back to the gossip channel. Absolutely. That boy is Qian Yan's new colleague. He is an ordinary worker's family. A family of 3 generations and 6 people live in 2 houses with a total of 30 square meters. What your Aunt Wan means is that if Qian Yan marries into a family like that, regardless of whether the relationship between the couple is good or not, the trouble in the future will be enough to kill someone. I heard that the boy's relatives are quite poor, and there is an aunt who is particularly difficult to deal with. The grandparents are okay, but the boy's sister has a bad personality. Your Aunt Wan is just worried that if Qian Yan gets married, there will be endless wars if the whole family lives together. Unexpectedly, Qian Yan doesn't listen at all and thinks that the boy named Ji Gang is not good. In fact, my grandma, my fat aunt, and I have met that boy before. In terms of talent and courtesy, he is quite good. He seems to be honest at first glance, and he is extremely kind to Qian Yan. But after a pause, Zhao Yulan shook her head. Although Mom didn't regret being with your father at all, but now seeing Qian Yan find someone like this, she feels it's inappropriate. How should I put it? After thinking about it, she continued, my mother's feeling is that the boy always seems to be shorter when he is with Qian Yan. No matter how poor he is, as long as he is shorter in his heart, he will be really happy in the future. It's not easy. Mother means that the reason why the man named Ji Gang is good to Jian Yan is because of Grandpa Wan's background. Ji Gang doesn't know your Grandpa Wan's background, but when I go to Wan's house and look at the house where I live, aren't there a big difference between the two families? Shaking her head, Zhao Yulan looked at Mrs. Zhao. Mom, what do you think? He feels a bit shorter than Jian Yan. This is also the reason why Brother Wan looks down on him. He feels that the young man lacks a bit of backbone. However, Jian Yan thinks that it is because he likes her that he treats her like that. It's never like that in front of others. From my perspective as an old woman, maybe what Jian Yan said makes sense. As soon as the boy comes, you will definitely be able to see the gap between the two families, and you will also be able to see that the elders of the Jian family do not like him. So, how do you make him toughen up? When a daughter-in-law is not married, does she have to be half a head shorter? Think about it, when Bao He first came to our house, didn't he have to bow his head to please me and your father? Mom. Zhao Yulan looked at her mother speechlessly. In front of the child, please save some face for Bao He. Mom, you are overthinking. No matter what Dad has done before, Dad is the greatest in my heart. Only when a man truly likes a woman will he be willing to humble himself for her. You see, some men, for the sake of their so-called integrity, lose their temper, break up with each other, or swear not to come to her until they get along well. In fact, these are the real cowards. If you have confidence, do you need to look like this? So Mom, I agree with Grandma, or maybe you have all misunderstood Ji Gang. By the way, what does Fat Ant think of him? With a slight cough, Chu Xia shook her head. Fat Ant is here to persuade others, but don't add fuel to the fire just because you don't like it. When her daughter said this, Zhao Yulan was really unsure and hesitated for a long time without answering. Chu Xia understood immediately. Fat Ant really doesn't like him. Well, your Fat Ant has the same view as me. She thinks it's not a good thing for a man to put himself so low. However, she is a well-educated person and shouldn't get involved. Don't mind other people's business, feed your son quickly. Old Mrs. Zhao slapped her granddaughter. You are a mother, you are not qualified at all. Didn't you see the two little guys sucking their fingers here? It's time to eat. Chu Xia smiled and quickly picked up Bei, who was looking at Baba. After feeding him, he turned to Nan Nan. Zhao Yulan and Mrs. Zhao looked at each other and started laughing. Chu Xia took in the expressions of the two elders, and was secretly amused in her heart. It seemed that this intergenerational relationship was really fatal. I dared her to deliberately neglect her younger son before, and the two elders almost felt distressed to death. Fat Ant stayed at Wan's house for lunch. Chu Xia and Luo Xiaoxian discussed it and went to Wan's house together. As for Jun Daodu and Jun Qiaqiu, they consciously went back to their rooms to rest. Chu Xia, Xiaoxian, come in quickly. As soon as the two of them arrived at the door, Qian Yan greeted them. She said come in quickly, but her actions blocked their progress. You have something to say? Chu Xia looked at her with a smile. You are very good at keeping secrets. You have already reached the point of meeting your parents. We just found out, haha. Please, please. Qian Yan quickly raised her hand. There's nothing we can do about it. My mother has always disagreed, and I'm not sure whether we can make it work, so I don't have the nerve to tell you. Besides, you are all very busy right now, and I really don't want to bother you with this kind of thing, but since you are here today, you really have to help me, please, please. What do you mean? Aunt Wan is still firmly opposed, Chu Xia asked. Hey. Qian Yan sighed. It would be better if she just said her objection. Ever since I came here, she has been too polite to die. Fat Ant tried to persuade her, but she is still like that. I really can't withdraw. It's okay for Ji Gang to have gotten used to my mother's attitude, but after all, it was the first time for his parents to come here, so they already felt uneasy. If my mother continued to behave like this, the couple could hardly sit still. Luo Xiaoxian couldn't help but curled her li first marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 1098. That's Ji Gang's mother. Qian Yan introduced in a low voice, then greeted the middle-aged woman with a smile, Auntie, why are you out? Ji's mother quickly put on a smile, I haven't looked at you for a long time, so I didn't feel relieved, so I came out to take a look, haha. I saw them coming, so I came out to greet them. Qian Yan introduced Chu Xia and Luo Xiaoxian to each other with a smile. After both parties said hello, the group entered the house and walked to the door. Qian Yan spoke quietly again. Chu Xia, what I meant was, of course, to ask Chu Xia not to forget to intercede for her. This made Chu Xia more curious about Ji Gang. Qian Yan is not the kind of character who can ignore everything when she falls in love with someone. She is less selfish now than before, but Ji Gang's conditions will not allow her to persist like this. Or is there really something shining in Ji Gang that the elders didn't notice? There were people sitting in a circle in the room. Mr. Wan, Aunt Yin, Wan Yuqian, Aunt Fat, and Aunt Qi occupied one side. A middle-aged man on the other side should be Ji Gang's father. The young man was naturally Ji Gang. And a girl about 20 years old. After Ji's mother entered, the girl quickly stood up and let Ji's mother inside. She looked at Qian Yan enthusiastically, Sister Yan Yan, who are these two? I am Lin Chuxia, Sister Yan Yan's grandfather is my god-grandfather. I am Luo Xiaoxian, and I am Lin Chuxia's good friend. Without Qian Yan's introduction, Chu Xia and Luo Xiaoxian reported their names themselves, and took the initiative to greet Ji's father, Ji Gang. After the two of them finished speaking, the girls quickly introduced themselves, my name is Ji Xiaomei, and I am Ji Gang's biological sister. While saying hello, Chu Xia looked at Ji Gang a few times. A very gentle boy, with an average to upper class appearance, not ugly, but not particularly outstanding. He is about 176 in height, which is considered to be average to upper class in this era. After politely greeting the two of them, he started talking. He poured water for the two of them, and even poured boiled water for Luo Xiaoxian. Chu Xia, Xiaoxian, have you all eaten? Wan Yuqian asked, looking at the two of them. Have eaten, Chu Xia replied while looking at Wan Yuqian's face. It could be seen that she was not particularly happy, and her expression was indifferent. After being with her for such a long time, Chu Xia knew her well. If she didn't like it, this is the expression he has when he is alone. Looking at the Ji family, they seem to be nothing but a little too honest and cramped. Or maybe Wan Yuqian is just reluctant to let her daughter suffer with Ji Gang now. But this season's family members are also very interesting. They clearly feel that the other party is not welcoming to them, so they are a little uncomfortable, but they insist on staying here and are always embarrassed. It's such a weird feeling to have a whole room full of people, basically bored. Under normal circumstances, Mr. Wan is a person who pays great attention to etiquette. He is so silent now because he probably doesn't want his nosy to make his daughter unhappy. After so many years of no contact, his daughter finally thought about it and he still cherishes it. This kind of harmonious relationship. It was even more inconvenient for Aunt Yin to participate, so she hid aside and glared at Aunt Qi. As an outsider, Aunt Qi would not get involved in this matter. Fat Aunt was invited by Qian Yan to adjust the atmosphere, but the atmosphere was really not easy to adjust, therefore, when she saw Chu Xia and Luo Xiaoxian coming in, she felt like she had seen a savior. He looked a little more relaxed. Chu Xia's eyes turned back to Ji's mother. This woman seemed to be carved from the same mold as Zhu Jianwen's mother. If Ji Gang hadn't been sitting here, she would have really thought that Qian Yan was in love with Zhu Jianwen. Woolen cloth. Ever since he went to City A to meet relatives with the Zhou family, Zhu Jianwen would come to visit the Lin family every now and then. During this time, Lin Yang Kaiu and Mrs. Zhou accompanied Yu Tao back to City A and did not come over. After a slight hesitation, Chu Xia looked at Ji's mother and asked, "Auntie, what's your surname?" Chu Xia suddenly called her by name. Ji's mother was stunned for a moment, then she quickly sat upright and answered, "My surname is Wang." "Sorry, let me ask a digression. Do you have an older sister or younger sister who is married to someone named Zhu?" "How do you know?" Mother Ji's eyes widened. "My second brother-in-law's surname is Zhu." "Do you know my second sister?" "What a coincidence." A smile appeared on Chu Xia's lips. "Their son's name is Zhu Jianwen, right?" "Yes, yes." Ji's mother nodded repeatedly. "Jianwen's kid is quite promising. He is obedient and filial. He is the lifeblood of my second sister and second brother-in-law." It seems that Zhu Jianwen's mother did not tell her parents about Zhu Jianwen's return to the Zhou family. Otherwise, Ji's mother would not have such an attitude. In other words, if she really told her, she would know that her family and the relationship between the Wan family is. Since she didn't want to say it herself, she naturally couldn't expose it openly to her, so she changed the subject with a smile. "What does brother Ji do now?" "I'm a technician in the factory now." Ji Gang's cheeks were slightly red. "I also wanted to be a soldier, but I didn't pass the military examination." He pointed to his eyes. "My eyesight is bad." In the hearts of people of this era, being a soldier is the most glorious thing, especially during this period of war. Therefore, after explaining the nature of his job, Ji Gang came up with a long series of explanations. "I'm telling you in disguise that I don't want to be a soldier because of my low consciousness. It's because I don't have enough conditions." Sister and brother Ji are from the same factory. Chu Xia turned to Jianyan and asked. "Yes." Jianyan nodded. "We are in the same office, and he helps me a lot. Others only finish their own things and never interfere with administrative or worker matters. He is different. He is busy. After finishing his own work, he would go to help in any type of work that needed him, and he didn't have the aura of being superior to others because I was a technician." "Why are technicians so superior?" Ji Gang smiled sheepishly. "If we don't have workers, what's the use of our advanced technology?" Wan Yuqian, who had been politely letting Ji's father and mother drink tea, glanced at Ji Gang lightly, then glanced at her daughter, got up and went to the bathroom. Mr. Wan smiled helplessly. "Xiao Ji, Xiao Wang, Yanyan's mother is not mentally ready for her daughter to get married yet, so please be patient." "I understand." Ji's father and Ji's mother nodded in agreement. After a pause, Ji's mother added, "This is what all mothers have in mind. Xiaomei is also 22 this year. I hope she can find her soon. She is a good husband, but she is afraid that if she finds her husband, she will have to marry off. The eldest daughter was also like this when she got married. Both my daughters were so reluctant to let her go. Sister Yuqiang only had a daughter like Yanyan, so she would definitely be even more reluctant to let her go. Moreover, the conditions of our family are really bad. If Yanyan marries into our family, even if we all protect her, she will definitely not be as comfortable as she is in her parents' family. Parents don't want their children to go to other people's homes and suffer. Hey, they all have the same thoughts, how can we not understand? It's just that the two children have to take care of themselves. As elders, we can only be a little selfish. Uncle Wan, my child, and his father are here to promise you that when Yanyan marries into our family, we will do our best not to let her suffer. If we eat thin food, she will definitely eat dry food. If we work, she will definitely be idle." "Don't say that." Mr. Wan interrupted her. "I also feel sorry for my granddaughter and hope that she will marry a good family, but I don't want her to marry and become the emperor. If you marry a chicken, follow the chicken. If you marry a dog, follow the dog. When the family's conditions are not met, she will have to endure the hardships together. Otherwise, is your family marrying the daughter-in-law or the ancestor? When these two get married, they have to support each other and live a happy life. Otherwise, it won't last long. However, I won't interfere in the children's affairs. She and her mother have discussed it, and I will help arrange it. I am very happy that you are here today. I am even happier if you can understand the poor reception. We are all parents, and if we can understand each other, there will be nothing to worry about in the future. This is obviously an order to expel guests. Ji's father and mother looked at each other and stood up knowingly. Uncle Juan, then we won't disturb you anymore. We'll come over to see you after a while. Ji's mother said as she picked up her daughter who was still sitting there in a daze, and then rushed to Sister Yin and others one by one. Farewell. The group left for a long time before Wan Yuqian came out of the bathroom with red eyes. What do you think you are doing? Mr. Wan sighed and looked at his daughter helplessly. It's rare that Yanyan is willing. Doesn't you make it difficult for her to do this? Besides, this family is all honest people. From now on, even if we are poor, we can help a little bit, and Yanyan won't suffer too much. Dad, I know all this, but I just can't pass the psychological test. Wan Yuqian took a long breath. Do you remember how Yanyan's father behaved with Ji Gang when he met you? Are they the same? The more my father and mother disagreed at that time, the better I thought of him. However, later facts proved that I had indeed misjudged the person. So today, there is absolutely no way I would let my daughter follow my old path again. Maybe she will hate him now. But one day, she will understand that what I did was right. You. Mr. Wan shook his head again. You have really jumped into the trap. This Ji Gang and Jian Amin are not the same kind of people at first glance. When Jian Amin went to our house, what he said it sounds good, but his eyes are wandering around, so your mother and I firmly disagree. This person's eyes are wandering only when he lies. When Ji Gang said this today, did you see his eyes wandering? Well. After a pause, Wan Yuqian answered truthfully, I really didn't pay attention. You have prejudices in your heart, how can you pay attention? Mr. Wan sighed heavily. I'm not saying that we must let them succeed, I just want you to look at this matter with a normal mentality. R1152. First marriage then love. Mr. Mayor, please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 1099. The first update is here. Sister, I knew you wouldn't just watch me being bullied by others. Wang Meifeng tilted her buttocks on the Kong, snuggled up again, and then sat back to her original position. Chu Xia and Luo Xiaoxian rubbed their foreheads together. They were really defeated by these two sisters. One was really kind and the other was really good at pretending. The words were thrown out. Even if Zhao Qiwi now saw that Wang Meifeng was pretending before, he could not regret it. He could only knock out his teeth and swallow blood. Sister, Chu Xia, Xiaoxian, I know that you all don't like me. Yes, I am a bit competitive, but do you know why I have such a personality? I have 3 brothers, and as long as I can remember, our family has not been welcomed by my grandparents, just because my mother is a husband and I am a girl. Later, my younger brother Jin Song was born. My grandparents finally started to smile towards my parents, but they still treated me the same as before. I was already sensible at that time, and of course I understood why they treated me so differently. I just thought that when I grow up, I must stand out and make them regret looking away. However, when I grew up, I knew clearly that as a rural girl, it was not easy to get ahead. I can't count on my relatives on my father's side, so I can only place my hope on my relatives on my mother's side. I know that only my second aunt can help me, so I am particularly close to my second aunt. In fact, my second aunt did fulfill everything I wanted. First, she went on a blind date with Jiang Junjia, and later she became a private teacher for me. I thought for a while. All my wishes have come true, and I can finally make my grandparents regret not paying enough attention to me. However, it turns out I'm still too naive. The reason why Jiang Junja is willing to be with me is that he needs the help of his second uncle. But now that he has a better backer, he has begun to alienate me. Private teachers are private teachers after all, and those teachers who graduated from normal schools are the most valued. Even if my teaching performance is as good as theirs, I will still be inferior to them. It dawned on me that I wanted to really stand out. It's really impressive. Only through my own efforts can I be more secure. I admit, the high marriage in early summer stimulated me. I always thought that I was more sensible and capable than early summer. She is no worse than Chu Xia in terms of length. Why did she climb so high all of a sudden and look down at me? But then I understood. Everyone has their own destiny, and Chu Xia's destiny is better than mine. If I blame others because of this, it will only make my life worse and worse. But early summer. I also want to advise you that it is better to rely on yourself than to rely on anyone else, if you don't work hard. One day, you will regret it too. And that's my goal now. Work hard to get into normal school and become a people's teacher with a formal establishment. Find a good man who really likes me, marry me, and live my own happy life. Wang Meifeng took the initiative to tell these things, which was beyond Chu Xia and Zhao Qiui's expectations. In their impression, Wang Meifeng was a person who only showed off and never said no to herself. It's incredible to hear what I say, right? Wang Meifeng spread her hands. That's because I really understand life and know what I should live for. Sister, I know that after you promised me just now, you regretted it. You felt that I was playing tricks on you and taking advantage of you. Yes, I was playing tricks on you, but I did not take advantage of you. I think that one person can judge the shortcomings and the other can judge the strengths. You can teach me some questions, and I can definitely help you with some questions. The effect of the two of us reviewing together will definitely be much better than studying alone. I used to have a bad personality and was quite selfish. Of course, I am not that selfless now. However, when it comes to taking the college entrance examination, I don't think I will gain much by dragging you down. If we both take the college entrance examination, being married will only make others think more highly of our family, which is good for you, me, and our family. I have no reason to refuse this benefit. Zhao Qiui breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. Okay, let's work hard together. Wang Meifeng looked at Chu Xia again. The bet I made with you is cancelled. Second sister, why do I have the feeling that you have a complete understanding? Chu Xia looked at her in disbelief. Have you really figured it out? Wang Meifeng glared at her. Go, 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 what a great enlightenment, it sounds like you want to become a nun. I just have experienced too many things, and I understand more principles. The development of the matter was really beyond the expectations of many people, but it was a good thing after all. No matter how true or false what Wang Meifeng said, there was no need to doubt it now. If we get along for a while, the answer will naturally come out. Especially Zhao Qiui, what she likes the most is this ending. Reviewing alone is too boring. It is indeed much better to have more people to accompany you than to be bored alone. In the following time, Zhao Qiui and Wang Meifeng chatted so enthusiastically that Chu Xia and Luo Xiaoxian were completely speechless. Just as Aunt Li Aiwan and Fat Aunt Zhao Yulan started to work on lunch, Chu Xia and Luo Xiaoxian took the opportunity to help evacuate. According to the usual custom, this meal must include dumplings. Sisters Zhao Yulan and Zhao Yuiying are responsible for making noodles, cutting stuffing, and taking 2 rookies to make dumplings. Li Aiwan and Fat Aunt are busy chopping vegetables, garnishing, and stir-frying. Around lunchtime, Uncle Wang Xingui and Wang Meifeng's younger brother Wang Jinsong also came. Chu Xia smiled and teased the two of them. Uncle, Jinsong, are you here on the cusp of lunch? Wang Xingui blushed and explained, No, We first went to Jin Song's house to visit relatives, and then we hurried over. Wang Jinsong is 3 years younger than Chu Xia. He has a fluffy beard on his mouth. He is at the age when he is shy when meeting girls. Now he droops his head and blushes to the roots of his ears. He does not dare to look at Chu Xia and Luo Xiaoxian. Chu Xia smiled and teased him, "Jin Song, why don't you call me sister?" Sister. The vague word sister came out of Wang Jinsong's throat. Luo Xiaoxian deliberately teased him, "There is another one. Sister." This sister was more vague than the previous one, and her face turned purple. "Who could hear you shouting so quietly?" Zhao Yueying stretched out her hand to tug at her son's head and smiled sheepishly at the fat ant. "A monk in a small temple can't live up to the occasion." The fat ant quickly said, "Sister, my eldest son is also a boy. When he was the same age as Jin Song, he was not as generous as Jin Song. It will be fine in 2 years." Luo Xiaoxian quickly answered, "That's right, if my brother teased him like this, he would have been annoyed by it long ago." "You still know," the fat ant glared at her, "you know that boys of this age have such tempers, and you deliberately make things difficult for them." Luo Xiaoxian giggled, "Mom, I am here to help him learn his courage. Otherwise, how can he be so shy when looking for a wife in the future?" The fat ant was so angry that she glared at her again and looked at Li Aiwan, "Sister-in-law, you have to be more patient in the future. This girl was pampered by me and her father. She doesn't have any shame when speaking of." Li Aiwan smiled happily, "I like Xiaoxian's character, she is straightforward. Such children have no evil intentions and are easy to get along with." Luo Xiaoxian raised her eyebrows proudly, "Mom, did you hear that?" The fat ant had a look of helplessness on her face. Look, she is so shameless. You say she is fat, but she actually gets out of breath." At this time, Wang Xingui had already brought Wang Jinsong into the east room. This was the first time for Wang Xingui to meet Zhou Mikang and Lin Wenbin. He was so nervous that he could not speak clearly. Wang Jinsong was okay, although he only asked questions and answered questions. But overall, he was not speechless like his father. For lunch, there was a table for the seniors and a table for the juniors, and they were divided into 2 rooms. Zhou Mikang and Lin Wenbin also took the initiative to come to the juniors' table. Luo Xiaoxian quietly nudged Chu Xia and lowered her voice, "Here comes the litmus test to verify whether what Wang Meifeng just said is true or false. You think of her too simply. You have tried all kinds of methods before. No matter whether you really want to or not, it is impossible for her to send her up now. Do you think she is also Yamiru?" Luo Xiaoxian nodded, "Indeed, there are not many people who are as shameless and idiotic as Yamiru." As Chu Xia expected, Wang Meifeng ate the meal in silence and basically didn't say much. On the contrary, her brother Wang Jinsong, after the initial silence, began to chase Zhou Mikang and ask questions. "However, I still don't dare to look at Chu Xia and Luo Xiaoxian, embarrassing." Lin Wenbin deliberately teased him, "Wang Jinsong, is your neck feeling a little uncomfortable?" No. Wang Jinsong looked at Lin Wenbin with a puzzled expression, "My neck is quite comfortable." "Then why are you always tilting your head and not looking up?" Wang Jinsong's face, which had returned to normal, turned red again, and he explained calmly, I feel more comfortable listening to my brother-in-law like this." Oh. Lin Wenbin nodded with a sudden look on his face, "I thought you had a bad neck at a young age. When you are young, you have to pay attention to small problems. Otherwise, you will suffer from the elders before you get older." Wang Jinsong was an honest child, so he quickly explained with a serious face, "Brother Lin, there is really nothing wrong with my neck. I didn't lie to you." Wang Meifeng glared at him, "Idiot, Brother Lin is teasing you. Chuxia is your cousin, and Xiaoxian is your future cousin. What are you embarrassed to see?" Wang Jinsong drooped his head and said nothing. Obviously, he was very embarrassed to be told the central issue. Ha ha ha. Lin Wenbin rubbed his head happily. Silly boy, I was like this when I was your age. Do you feel that when you see a girl who is not much different from you, no matter whether you are related or not? Do you feel particularly embarrassed about the relationship? Really? Wang Jinsong quickly looked up at him. Brother Lin, is everything you said true? To be continued. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 1100. Popular recommendations. This is not what she wants. Yu Xiang was anxious and looked at Kong Chuying's sleeves pitifully. Mom, I don't want to marry into a poor family, and I don't want to be rich and wealthy, as long as the situation of our family is similar. If you and Dad divorce, but what should I do? When your second sister married your second brother-in-law, our family was a poor family. Kong Chuying sighed and patted her youngest daughter on the shoulder. Xiang you are already over 20 years old. You can't always put yourself in such trouble. Our happiness rests on others, and we cannot always think about getting something for nothing. In this world, there is never a free pie. You envy your second sister for being able to find your second brother-in-law, but have you ever thought about it? If you were in your second sister's position, how would you be with your second brother-in-law? He wanted to answer bravely, yes, but he felt that such an answer was too hypocritical and no one would believe it. Yu Xiang just stopped talking. When Yu Tao met Zhou Zikang, the Zhou family was still at its lowest point. Most of the time, it was Yu Tao who protected Zhou Zikang. If it were her, how could she choose such a man? At that time, she was secretly joking too silly, and the marriage between Yu Tao and Zhou Zikang was also opposed by the whole family except Kong Chuying. If the Zhou family hadn't suddenly turned around 1 month before the wedding, or the Yu family wouldn't have let Yu Tao's wedding go smoothly, it's absolutely certain. At this moment, Kong Chuying brought up such old things again, and Yu Tao, who had a trace of unbearable expression on her face, immediately returned to normal. Yes, if she continues to be soft-hearted in such a family, sooner or later, she will regret it. It doesn't matter that she endures hardships herself, but if the Zhou family is implicated in this, it will be a big sin. Back then, the old man and the old lady from the Yu family went to the Zhou family, pointed at Zhou Jingping and Lin Yangkai's noses and scolded them, saying they didn't teach their children well and wanted to eat swan meat. Even though they had such a bad attitude, the Zhou family did not hold grudges and still provided them with unlimited help, but what did they get in exchange? So, some people can't be tolerated. If at that time, she could stick to the bottom line and prevent them from getting what they didn't deserve, or maybe they wouldn't be so shameless now, right? Moreover, among all the mistakes, the most intolerable was that they actually took advantage of Zhou Zikang. She was the daughter of the Yu family. How could they come up with such a disgusting idea? That's all. The past has passed, and because of the past, she can understand their true nature and make the right choice. From now on, she will not give them the chance to hurt her. At this time, she was especially fortunate that the Zhou family's background was here. If she had only married into a moderately wealthy family, she would never be able to live in peace in this life. Thinking of this, Yu Tao looked at Kong Chuying. Mom, let's go. Kong Chuying nodded. I'll pack my clothes and leave. Mom, I don't need any more clothes. I've already prepared everything for you. Yu Tao looked at her mother seriously. Don't say no, I am your daughter and I should respect you. Mom doesn't want to refuse, I just think it shouldn't be too wasteful. Kong Chuying smiled lovingly at her. Mom understands your thoughts, but there are some things that have been with Mom for a lifetime, and you always have to clean up. Lin Yangkai looked at Yu Tao. Tao accompany your mother to clean up. Mom is waiting for you here. Yu Tao followed Kong Chuying back to the bedroom obediently. After a moment's hesitation, Yu Guangju followed suit and walked in. Lin Yangqiu smiled faintly and said, "If anyone wants to move out of this house, just go and embarrass the mother and daughter." Yu Guangju paused, turned around, and looked at Lin Yangqiu angrily. You are too bullying." Lin Yangqiu shrugged at him, "I just bullied you, what's wrong? I'm going to broadcast what you did to your radio station to see if you still have the face to see others, and to see if your Zhou family will be accused of bullying others. Okay, I hope you do this. Let's see if people will scold our family or praise our family. Don't you know what bad things you have done? You still have the nerve to threaten me here, Yu Guangju. Do you really think I was scared? If it weren't for Tao, do you think I would let you live in this house? You know how much you have exposed yourself to your daughter. If you continue to act like this, you will bear the consequences." Needless to say, Yu Guangju was really afraid of this happening. From the looks of it, Kong Chuying had no intention of living with him. If he lost his house, he would be single for the rest of his life. Although he disliked Kong Chuying, the other party still took good care of him. Now that the other party was leaving, he had no regrets about anything else. What was unhappy was that he lost someone to take care of him. If you still have a house, it shouldn't be difficult to find another one, right? Thinking like this, the anger in his heart actually faded away little by little, and there was even some eager hope. Or maybe his second spring was coming. Did things get done so smoothly? Chu Xia looked unbelieving when she heard Yu Tao talking about what happened on the phone. It was so different from what she imagined. Is this going well? Yu Tao couldn't help but smile bitterly. While we were talking, Yu Mei slipped out to find my brother and my sister-in-law. Then, when they came back with their children, my mother and I happened to pack up. Got something to go. My nieces and nephews hugged my mother's legs and cried out of breath. To be honest, even though I knew the children were taught to do this by adults, I still couldn't bear to see them sad. I thought my mother she would not be able to persist. Unexpectedly, she finally left with me firmly. But she sighed and paused for a long time before continuing, but even though my mother did this, she felt uncomfortable. She was always in a daze on the road. When we talked to her, she was always confused. Can't hear it? After returning home, she was still in a daze. When her mother-in-law brought the documents to her to sign, although she signed it obediently, tears kept flowing. For a moment, I wanted to stop my mother from divorcing my father. I felt that I thought this was a way to make my mother happy, but in fact, it made her life even more miserable than before. You can't say that. In the beginning, Auntie will definitely not be able to let go. No matter how unaffectionate a person is, he will not be happy if he suddenly breaks off the relationship after staying in the same home for so many years. What's more, Auntie is so affectionate. People, give her time and let her feel more at ease, and she will get better. After thinking about it, Chu Xia suggested, how about you bring your aunt to the capital? It will be far away from the familiar environment, and it is impossible to meet someone you don't want to see. Someone, or can she get out faster? Okay, let me discuss it with her. Originally, I asked my mother to come here and asked her to help me take care of the child. If I now ask her to take her to the capital, I'm afraid she will feel conflicted. Sigh. Yu Tao sighed and said, my mother is the kind of person who doesn't particularly want to take advantage of others. If she feels that her coming here doesn't have much effect at all, she will be even more uneasy. And I'm worried that after she doesn't feel her own value, she will ask to move out and live on her own. If that's the case, what's the point of everything I'm doing now? Auntie is also quite stubborn. However, I still advise you to bring her to live in the capital for a while. With my father and mother's experience, it will be easier for Auntie to accept staying with you. After thinking for a while, Yu Tao responded, okay, I'll try my best to persuade her to go to the capital with me to stay for a while. Hey, I thought I knew my mother quite well, but now, I'm a little unsure about her thoughts. After hanging up the phone in Chuxia, Yu Tao went to find Kong Qiuying, who was holding Yanyan and sitting on the sofa in a daze, while Lin Yangkai, who was sitting next to her, looked helpless. Mom. When Yu Tao called out, Lin Yangkai and Kong Qiuying both looked over. Then, Kong Qiuying's face turned red, her lips moved twice, and she lowered her head uncomfortably. Mom, don't be like this. Yu Tao sat next to Kong Qiuying. I brought you here because I hope you can be happy. Now that I see you like this, I feel very guilty and have doubts about my previous judgment. Questioned. Tao, it's not that Mom misses that home, it's just. Sighing, Kong Qiuying smiled bitterly, it's hard for you to make Mom happy all of a sudden. I'm sorry, I was too impatient. Yu Tao also sighed and turned to look at Lin Yangkai. Mom, I just called my siblings and told them about my mother's current condition. She wants us to go to the capital together. Wait for a while, what do you think? After thinking about it for a while, Lin Yangkai nodded, this is a good idea. She looked at Kong Qiuying, sister, why don't we go to my daughter-in-law's place in the capital together tomorrow? A change of environment may be good for your mood, and the courtyard where you live should make you feel close to me. Besides, my daughter-in-law's mother is a person with a very good personality. You must have many friends with her. Common topic. Okay. Unexpectedly, Kong Qiuying agreed immediately. At this moment, Yu Tao looked at her mother with a look that was full of research. Is her understanding of her mother wrong for so many years? You kid, how do you look at people? Kong Qiuying felt uncomfortable being stared at by her daughter, so she glared at her. I'm not willing to live with you just to make you look at me every day and worry me. Tao, Mom told the truth. It's impossible for you to let Mom stop caring about the people there after she leaves that home. In any case, your two brothers and Xiaoxiang are also Mom's children. For Mom, everything is a piece of meat that has fallen off the body, and she will worry about every one of them that is not doing well. In the past, it was because of this kind of thinking that they later became dissatisfied. Mom has figured it out and will not be confused like this again in the future. However, it is impossible to really ignore them. In the future, when everyone has figured it out, Mom still hopes to see them often. Okay. R1152. First marriage then love. Mr. Mayor, please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1101. Domain name of this website for pure text online reading /U003C, /U003CB /U003E /U003C/B /U003E /U003C/ For simultaneous reading on mobile phone, please visit /U003C/BR /U003E. Due to the problem of setting up in advance, the two chapters posted yesterday were reversed. The content has been changed. Dear friends, you can read it again. It seems that you really like Ji Gang, otherwise you wouldn't have told us so much. Chu Xia hugged Jian Yan's shoulders affectionately. Go back and have a good talk with Aunt Wan. This time, she will listen to you. Said. I hope. Jian Yan sighed helplessly. My grandpa has tried to persuade my mother before, but every time he said it well, he went back on it. I was really defeated. It shouldn't happen this time. At that time, we didn't know that Aunt Wan had no one else to relieve her stress except talking to grandpa. It's different now. My mother, my grandma, fat aunt, everyone, using her own personal experience as advice, even though Aunt Wan still couldn't fully accept it, she was already working hard to fully accept it. Also, she asked me to tell you that if she really likes Ji Gang, she will not stop her, but she hopes you can see clearly the person Ji Gang and the true character of his family members. And whether Ji Gang's aunt will have an impact on your lives in the future. If so, she hopes you will talk to Ji Gang about this matter now to take precautions. Antoine asked me to tell you this, probably because she was worried that if she told you in person, she would not be able to help but tighten her tone and trigger your rebellious psychology. Sighing, Chu Xia looked at her seriously. You want to understand her good intentions. I understand. Sniffing, Qian Yan smiled sheepishly. It seems that I have also made the most common mistake between relatives. Lack of the most basic trust. Jun Daodu, who had been silent for the whole time, sighed. Everyone is like this, because they always live with their relatives and feel that they know everything about the other person, so they tend to become suspicious. When dealing with outsiders, you will have more patience, and naturally it will be easier to accept the persuasion of outsiders, no matter it is you. Still Antoine, or every one of us, in fact, often make this kind of mistake. There is nothing we can do about it. This is human nature. Qian Yan smiled and said, Daodu is so sensitive. It seems that I have had conflicts with Aunt Lan before. You are really right about my marriage to Johan Liang. My mother was firmly against it at the time. Initially, it was because of Johan Liang's family background. Later I finally accepted it, but because he was going on a mission and wanted us to get married in a few years, after I made my decision. My mother locked me up, but later, she agreed to it. It's not like she really thought it through and agreed. However, she still couldn't bear to let me be sad. Even if she didn't think about it, she would still make a compromise. Her objection was not against Johan Liang, but just for my future. Most parents are like this. When it comes to their children's marriage, they can rationally consider many issues, but when we are in a relationship, how can we listen? In other words, if you can really listen, it means that the love is not deep enough, but no matter what, we must admit that our parents are the people who love us the most. Even if you have a significant other, even if you love your significant other deeply, you must admit this, because when you get along with your significant other, you will unconsciously be more tolerant and less demanding. But when facing our parents, we often feel that they should treat us well. As long as they are not as good as we want, we will be disappointed and angry. Put yourself in their shoes. Why do we treat our parents like that? Why should we ask them to devote their whole lives to us? We ourselves are parents. How would we feel if our children treated us like this in the future? Of course, when I say this, I don't mean that we should rely on our parents for everything, because they only think about us, but we have to think about ourselves and our significant other, so there must be conflicts. But as long as we understand where the contradictions lie, we will be less resentful and more understanding towards them, and when they see how happy we are, they will naturally change their original ideas. Sister Yan Yan, what I said is my own personal experience. I believe that parents who love their children are the same. I hope it can be of some use to you. Thank you. Qian Yan looked at her with a grateful face. I know what to do. I shouldn't run away anymore. No matter what my mother's attitude is towards me, I must let her understand that I love Ji just now, but I love her equally. Hee hee. Luo Xiaoxian laughed evilly and looked at her mischievously. What you say means that you love Jigang more than Antoine. Otherwise, you should say that you love Jigang but Antoine more. Qian Yan looked at her helplessly. You are calling this a nitpick. These are two different feelings. How can they be compared together? The difference between family affection and love is that love can make people fly to a flame, but family affection can only warm your heart, so be kind to your relatives. When did I stop being kind to my relatives? Qian Yan looked at Luo Xiaoxian feebly. It really doesn't hurt to stand and talk. You and Zhaoqi Liang have been recognized by parents from the beginning. How can you understand our suffering? You said that to me because you don't know the truth about me and Zhaoqi Liang being together. Luo Xiaoqing spread her hands. If I hadn't taken the initiative to pursue him, he wouldn't be good to me. It's for this reason that I talk about love. It can make people fly to a flame. I am such a reserved person, but when it comes to love, I still make such desperate actions. Alas, I am a dwarf when I think about it. Qian Yan said smoothly. Ji Gang and I also took the initiative. Then it's over. Luo Xiaoqing spread her hands. We are all women who risk our lives for love, but this guy. She stretched out her hand to poke Chu Xia. I have always been sensible from the beginning. She suddenly paused, staring blankly ahead, speechless. What's wrong? Qian Yan asked, following her gaze, and then excitedly poked Chu Xia. Your teacher, your teacher. Jun Daodu also became excited and asked around unconsciously. Chu Xia shook her head in a funny way. Please see clearly. That's Zhu Jianwen, not Zhou Mikang. Judging from their expressions, when have you ever seen Zhou Mikang wear such clothes? Although the man standing far away looks exactly like Zhou Mikang, he is wearing a Zhongshan suit and has an elegant temperament, which is completely opposite to Zhou Mikang's coldness and aloofness. In fact, Zhu Jianwen looked very similar to Zhou Mixang when he was serious, but now, smiling at a few people from a distance, he was very different from Zhou Mixang. Everyone understood it now. In fact, if they were normal, they would have recognized each other. They just said it warmly and happened to mention the teacher Zhangzi, so they invariably assumed that the other party was the teacher Zhangzi. Second brother, are you waiting for us? As they got closer, Chu Xia took the initiative to greet Zhu Jianwen. Yeah, you haven't met Mom and Grandma on campus, Zhu Jianwen said as he looked back. They came back in the afternoon. They asked me to accompany them to come to you just now, because they were afraid that they would take a wrong turn and let me go. I'll wait here while they go in to look for it, and they really leaked it to you. Chu Xia had a puzzled look on her face. South, south, north and north are all at home. Mom and Grandma should miss them more. Why do you come here to find me? I don't know about this. Zhu Jianwen smiled sheepishly. They asked me to come with them, so I came over. This feeling is so weird. Luo Xiaoqing scratched her head in confusion. Obviously he looks exactly the same as Mr. Master, but his tone and expression are completely different. The more I look at him, the more I feel like he is insane. Jun Daodu nodded in agreement. I am a little bit too. After all, I am too familiar with Mr. Teacher. Then she turned to look at Chu Xia. What about you? How do you feel when you look at him? It felt weird at first, but after having sex more times, I got used to it. It feels like looking at Brother Zikang. I believe Zhou Mikang will be surprised when he comes back. Chu Xia's eyes were full of anticipation. It would be great if we knew when he would come back. We could find the eldest brother in advance, and we would definitely scare him half to death. Yes, yes, let the second brother wear the same clothes as the teacher. Luo Xiaoqing smiled to herself as she spoke. Do you think the teacher will feel like he is taking care of the mirror? Jun Daodu chuckled. I don't know if it feels like taking care of a mirror, but I believe Mr. Master will be frightened, thinking that someone pretended to be him and snatched away his wife while he was away. Seeing the discomfort on Zhu Jianwen's face, Chu Xia glared at the two of them with dissatisfaction. You have to have a temper when joking. How embarrassing will it be for you to act like this? Luo Xiaoqing quickly apologized. Second brother, I'm sorry. We didn't mean it, but we just felt so happy when we imagined the scene. If you don't like it, just scold us. We will definitely not take it seriously. Zhu Jianwen smiled helplessly. You have said this, and you will definitely not take it to heart. If I scold you for this, wouldn't it be too unmanly? Look, look. Luo Xiaoqing smacked her lips and looked at Chu Xia. This is the difference. If you are the teacher, you must have glanced at us lightly and not even said a word. Look at others. Second brother is so kind. By the way, second brother, How are you and your second sister-in-law getting along lately? After a slight pause, Zhu Jianwen smiled and nodded, it's okay. He glanced back and breathed a sigh of relief. Brothers and sisters, grandma and mom are here. Chu Xia quickly turned around and saw Lin Yangqiu and Mrs. Zhou running over. She became panicked. Grandma, mom, are you in such a hurry to come to me? Is there something urgent? To be continued.